All right, folks, shalom and welcome to the Yishai Fleisher Show. Today, a very special episode, a very special session that we're going to have here together, and that is we're remembering October 7th, but we're not only remembering it as in looking at it in the past, as though we're thinking about some war that happened in the past. Rather, the reality is that Israel continues to fight that war very, very seriously. That war is being prosecuted in our time right now. So this is just a kind of, shall we say, a little like mental recap of what we've seen in this war in the last year. And I can tell you about myself. It's just been such a journey of what Israel is and how it sees itself, how this war is being fought. See that news station behind me, Channel 14, how it's showing the news. I think they have on the news. Yeah, the guy in the news that's there right now is going to be on our show later on. That's Amir Avivi right now, the general. So he's right now on Channel 14. He's going to be on our show in just a bit. I have a candle going to my back right, and that is the candle of the memory of all those who have fallen. And a lot have fallen, right? From October 7th itself to the hundreds of soldiers that have been killed to the continuing terror attacks. Listen, we had just on Thursday, on Wednesday, we had 2 soldiers killed from a UAV drone attack from Iraq. We had 6 killed in a terror attack in Tel Aviv and in Jaffa, and it just continues. Now we just had an attack in Beersheba. A young soldier girl a female soldier was killed. So we are in an intense time. We are in an intense time. And I just want to show you just a few little videos. Let me show you the video that was recorded in Jordan of the Iranian attack that we had last week. Check this out. Started to start here. This is what it looks like over the skies of Jordan when attacks are coming from Iran onto Israel. Isn't that wild? Those are all ballistic missiles. Those are various kinds of missiles, actually, including UAVs and smaller missiles. Look at them. They're all coming at us. And that's what it is to be a Jew. So here, Teresa says, I stand with Israel from Brazil. And I love you for it, Teresa. Thank you so much. And at the same time, like being a Jew here in the land of Israel is really not a simple thing. We are really under very serious attack. And that is the reality that we face out here. So tonight we're going to remember the past, remember the heroism. But at the same time, we're going to talk about the fight that's here right now, including the potential upcoming attack on Iran that everybody's talking about on Israeli news. So that's very serious. So we're going to remember everything from the heroism that was to the heroism that will be, from the successes to the losses. Let's start right now first with, as we are a show from the land of Israel, and we are talking also about the God of Israel protecting the Jewish people. Let's start with Rabbi Stephen Pruzansky, who's the Rabbi Emeritus of Congregation Bnei Yeshurun, a synagogue in Teaneck, New Jersey. He made Aliyah to the land of Israel and is currently... do we have Rabbi Pruzansky with us? Did I jump the gun? Do we have him with us, Yocheved? If we do, there he is. There he is, Rabbi Pruzansky. Right now, he's the Israel representative of the Coalition for Jewish Values and serves as a senior research associate at the Jerusalem Center for Applied Policy. Applied Policy, that sounds serious. Rabbi Pruzansky's latest book is called Road to Redemption from Kodesh Press, and it's now available. Rabbi Pruzansky, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yishai, Shana Tova. Have a good and healthy year. It's good to see you again.
You know, I had you on throughout this year, and you know, it's amazing how many emotional things you go through. I wanted to ask you a question. I'm going to pose it to you through what happened to me today. Today, I went to the pharmacy here in beautiful Efrat. And I went to the pharmacy and I was, people are talking and I heard the pharmacist was helping me and a friend of the pharmacist walked past me and said to the pharmacist, Shana Tova, have a good year. And the pharmacist says, You should have a boring year. It should be a year that nothing happens. And he was being so kind of cute about it, like the Chinese expression, boring, the whole thing. And I turned to the both of them and I said to them, you guys, we really should stop lying to ourselves. The war is here. We have to gird ourselves. If we keep on saying to ourselves, it should be boring, this thing should be over, we don't get it. This is it. This is the bed that we've made over the past 20, 30 years. Now the fight's real. The terrorism, the jihad is in Hebron. The jihad is in Hezbollah's hands and in Hamas's hands. It's in Iraq and it's in Yemen. Like, hello, snap out of it. Don't say it should be a boring year. This is a cute thing. Say it should be a year of victory, because that's where we're going. And the more we just say to ourselves the truth of what we're facing here, what we're dealing with, we'll be better off. Let's not kid ourselves anymore. Let's get into it and be ready. What do you think about that interchange? That's how I'm posing my question to you today.
I think it's not an unfair approach. Maybe what he means by boring is to have a quiet year. But we can have a quiet year if our enemies come to their senses and surrender and decide to live in peace with us and decide to benefit from all the good and kindness and creativity that the Jewish people in the land of Israel bring to the world. So in that sense, if we're blessed with a quiet year because our enemies just give up their desire to exterminate us, then that's a positive thing.
Is that real?
The revolution.
Is that a reality? Is that what's going to happen?
At this point, it's a pipe dream. And, there's a mentality in the Middle East. It's not like even Germany and Japan in World War II, when once they were devastated by the Allies and their military capacity was destroyed and their leaders were killed, they surrendered, and they surrendered unconditionally. That was a different time. Here in the Middle East, there's this notion that you almost never surrender, that you just fight to the last drop of blood. And you may hide your children somewhere, and you'll tell them to pick up the fight in 20 years, and your grandchildren in 40 years. So obviously it's very unhealthy. And so the hatred for Jews in Israel is very deep-seated. The good news is we both recognize this. It's not universal across the Arab world, because now Israel, unlike 30, 40 years ago, has allies. And in a very significant way, those allies that we have, like the Emirates and Bahrain openly, or the Saudis even tacitly, they realize that they have more to fear from Iran, like we do, than they have to fear from Israel, which is really nothing at all. So they have sought, in their own way, I wouldn't say it's wholehearted, but there's no doubt they're acting in their self-interest also. They have sought to achieve some reconciliation with Israel, and they signed treaties, except for the Saudis. They've signed treaties in order to stabilize and really stabilize the region, but announce to their people that we have no beef with the Jewish state. We can live together in harmony. I don't know how prevalent that attitude is across the rest of the Middle East. And the truth be told, even those allies that we have, they're not friends, they're allies. But how much would they really lament if, God forbid, the Jewish state disappeared? And to me, that's a very important metric of our relations with our neighbors. Would they miss us? Would they mourn our disappearance? I don't think we've reached that level yet. But nonetheless, there are grounds for optimism. And I maintain I'm one of those who are optimistic, notwithstanding that there are difficult days ahead and our enemies are powerful. And look, Israel is the size of New Jersey, and it has a smaller population, roughly, than New Jersey has. And yet we're fighting a war on 7 fronts. And we're fighting all these wars almost on behalf of the West, which is indifferent to antagonistic to what we're trying to accomplish. Now, the fact is, you take one example, one of the Iranian proxies are the Houthis in Yemen. And for years now, they are attacking Western shipping. Pirates, they're seizing cargo ships, and they've completely upset international trade. Many countries now avoid going through the Suez Canal and have to go around South Africa, which adds weeks and a lot of money to the journey, and therefore a lot of money to the goods that people will eventually purchase. That's not really our fight. That should be the fight that's waged by the Americans and the British and the French, and they're not doing it. If anything, they're trying to kneecap us when we're trying to help them and defend ourselves and defend their interests too. So you have this almost amalgam of different interests and different national identities. It has to shake itself out somehow, but nonetheless, one thing is true. Like you alluded to in your opening, the Chinese have a phrase, may you live in interesting times. Well, these are interesting times that I really believe herald the coming redemption, because we're seeing biblical prophecies come to life of the nations of the world, many of them unsympathetic even to the massacre of Jews that took place a year ago, hostile to the notion of Jewish self-defense, and yet we persevere. And we're persevering on behalf of the civilized world, doesn't yet appreciate it. And of course, we're persevering because we have no other options.
Okay, so let me show you a video that speaks right to what you're talking about, Rabbi. Here we go. Let's see Prime Minister Netanyahu as he's addressing a different world leader.
I have a message.
Wait, here we go.
I have a message. I have a message for President Macron. Today, Israel is defending itself on 7 fronts against the enemies of civilization. We're fighting in Gaza against Hamas, those savages who murdered, raped, beheaded, and burned our people on October 7th. We're fighting in Lebanon against Hezbollah, the most heavily armed terror organization in the world, which was planning an even greater massacre than October 7th on our northern border, and that has rocketed Israeli towns and cities for nearly a year. We're fighting against the Houthis in Yemen and the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria that together have launched hundreds of drones and missile attacks against Israel. We're fighting against terrorists in Judea and Samaria who are trying to murder civilians in the heart of our cities. And we're fighting against Iran, which last week fired over 200 ballistic missiles directly at Israel, and which stands behind the 7-front war against Israel. As Israel fights the forces of barbarism led by Iran, all civilized countries should be standing firmly by Israel's side. Yet President Macron and some other Western leaders are now calling for an arms embargo against Israel. Shame on them. Is Iran imposing an arms embargo on Hezbollah, on the Houthis, on Hamas, and on its other proxies? Of course not. The axis of terror stands together. But countries who supposedly oppose this terror axis call for an arms embargo on Israel. What a disgrace. Well, let me tell you this. Israel will win with or without their support. But their shame will continue long after the war is won. For in defending ourselves against this barbarism, Israel is defending civilizations against those who seek to impose a dark age of fanaticism on all of us. Rest assured, Israel will fight until the battle is won, for our sake and for the sake of the peace and security of the entire world.
Wow. I mean, that is a moment of,
clarity.
but there's no diplomatic, finesse there. There's no effort to soften the blow. There's no sugarcoating it. I mean, he called out Macron fully. He said, he gave him what's called in modern discourse shaming. He went totally, he really also showed he was ticked off. Like you could see it. He's like honestly angry. So, there's a moment of, it's like, boy, that's like a moment in this war as well. It's like the prime minister of Israel is ripping the prime minister of France. and it just with no holds barred. That's definitely a moment for me in this war. Let me ask you this, Rabbi Pruzansky. I listen to your classes, and you have great history classes. Can you tell me this story so far in terms of a history class? Can you see this in hindsight? Can you see the big picture of it? Can you help us see the big picture of it?
I think it's a little too early to draw ultimate conclusions, but let's just say that's a very important moment when the Prime Minister spoke with tremendous passion and clarity about what the challenges of this generation are. So first, bravo.
Right.
Good to hear. But
Right.
I did pick up on something.
Mm-hmm.
Macron is really a proxy because he said Macron and other Western leaders. And to whom is he referring? Obviously Biden and Harris and the American administration, which have played a double game since the war started, since the massacre of October 7th. Recall, on October 8th, Anthony Blinken called for a ceasefire.
Wow.
Tweet, which of course he deleted within a few days because Israel had not yet begun to fire. But how hollow, how disgraceful is that? Imagine if anyone in the world had called on America on September 12th, 2001, ceasefire, or in what's become the most popular term of American diplomacy, de-escalate. De-escalate. Let diplomacy do its work. Well, it's diplomacy that put us in the position that we are now, because over 15 years ago, in a failed war, the Second Lebanon War, when Israel again withdrew from southern Lebanon after being attacked incessantly, and the United Nations Security Council passed the resolution 1701, in which the UN guaranteed that Hezbollah would have, and its forces and its weaponry would have to remain north of the Litani River, and there would be a United Nations and international force to see to that. Well, what happened? It never happened. Hezbollah right away moved up to the border, and as we're seeing unfold in real time, they built a similar underground infrastructure to that which Hamas built in Gaza, under the very nose, yes, of the Israeli governments, but also under the very nose of the United Nations, which was supposed to thwart this, but did not. So these calls for de-escalation and for diplomacy and for a ceasefire are worse than hollow. They're repugnant. And at this point in the conflict, at any point in the conflict, it's tantamount to declaring we want a terrorist enemy to survive, to be able to kill Jews another day. And what you, Israel, is doing in order to defeat them, that is roiling the international community, because you have no right to defend yourselves against these horrendous attacks. Take it like a victim and count your blessings that some of you survived and be done with it. But we're going to embargo weapons. We're going to have additional United Nations resolutions undermining the claim of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. We're going to do whatever we can to make sure that Israel does not win. That's not only Macron, sad to say. That's been the approach of the Biden-Harris administration since October 7th, 2023. And remember, there was a ceasefire on October 6th, 2023.
Right.
So Hamas breached that ceasefire in a most horrific way. And now for the invader, the murderer, the marauder, the rapist, the kidnapper, when the day of reckoning comes, to say, stop, uncle, now we want a ceasefire. That's now how it works in the real world. In the real world, the real spiritual world, the evildoer has to be punished, and punished in such a way that most of them don't exist anymore. The others surrender and cower in fear, and their entire society is deterred from ever trying such an attack again. That's what we're looking for.
I don't know if you've been catching Rabbi Pruzansky, but there's comments being posted right now by Yocheved, my producer, and my other producer today, who's Elazar Menachem, my son, who's helping out today. He just recently turned bar mitzvah, Mazal Tov. And there's so many of these comments are from people in these countries like Portugal, European countries, other countries were saying, like, I am against what my leadership is doing. I know the Jewish people are good and right. I know they're fighting our fight. Here's people from Holland, people from Portugal, people writing from every place in the world, from Australia. People are saying, like, I stand with Israel. I stand with Israel, and I condemn. Here it is, my disgraceful. Can I have that one back just for a second, please? The one with the Canadian. I stand with Israel from Canada and condemn our disgraceful political leaders. I see that a lot. I see that a lot. I see people saying that. But I want to get to one more question with you, which is a political leader, which is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In many ways, one could make the argument that he's at fault for a lot of this. He's allowed our enemies to put those chess pieces in play in South Lebanon, in Gaza, under his administration, under his nose. He funneled money into Gaza. He voted for the disengagement. He also released the terrorists that became the heads of Hamas in our time. So kind of like, let's be real. And now there's this turnaround. It's like he's a different person right now, and it's like, it feels like there's some loosening, like the hamstrings have been loosened, and it's like that's it. It's like Israel's coming out strong. How do we judge, or do we have time to judge? Is this the right time to judge? But how do we understand our leadership right now?
Well, there's no doubt that many mistakes were made. Many mistakes were made by him, and I'm not really here to defend him. We could, if we wanted to have an accurate accounting of what happened on October 7th, I wouldn't start on October 6th or even in 2022. I would start in 1993 with the Oslo Accords. And then even after they collapsed, the left in Israel persisted in this delusion that there's a partner for peace and we just have to find the right mechanism and we're going to be able to make peace with them. And then you had the expulsion of Jews from Gaza in 2005. And once you took Jews out of Gaza and the presence of the army, well, that enabled Hamas a year later to take power. They were voted a majority in the parliamentary elections in any event, but then they kicked out Fatah, the PA from Gaza, and they essentially became the governing authority in Gaza. So we have to start there. On the other hand, and this may be very difficult for people to hear, and I'm not here as a apologist for Netanyahu, but sure, he made all these mistakes in retrospect. Gilad Shalit trading over 1,000 terrorists for one soldier, one of them being Yihya Sinwar. And like you said, funneling billions of dollars from Qatar and other countries to Hamas in Gaza, that facilitated the construction of that underground terror network. But, and here's a critical but, where are the people? Do the people want the Shalit deal? Overwhelmingly, yes. Do the people want to buy quiet in Gaza by giving them billions of dollars? Yes, that's what the people wanted. So we can criticize him, and a lot of the criticisms are valid and fair, but then you have to understand, where is the prime minister and where are the people? A leader cannot get too far away from his people's perceptions of the conflict, and had he done that, it would have been a different outcome altogether for him individually and for the nation as well. And I'll give you a perfect example. We know that Israel, in this case, it's very analogous to America. There are people who have this irrational hatred of Donald Trump. In Israel, there are people who have this irrational hatred of Benjamin Netanyahu. And they look at everything through the prism of, is it good or bad for Netanyahu? Just watching the news tonight, there's a whole group led by Dan Chalutz, who was the failed chief of staff in the losing second Lebanon war in 2006, who are literally saying they would rather lose the war if it meant getting rid of Netanyahu. So I ask you, if Netanyahu, and we don't know what he knew, and my assumption is he did not know Hamas was planning an attack for October 7th. But let's say he did know. And October 6th, he launched a preemptive strike in Gaza in order to thwart the invasion that was scheduled for the next day. I ask you, Yishai, and you're a sophisticated observer and know the Israeli public and media very well, what would have been the reaction of the media and the public? That
he could have been easily, warmonger and
deflect attention from his trials and from his polling.
Right.
He's sending our children to die.
Wag the dog scenario.
That's what they would have said. And we know they said it. And you could look at many decisions over the last 15 years and say, well, were his decisions popular or unpopular with the people? And my conclusion is, and history will be the judge, his decisions were wrong, mistakes, but they were popular at the time.
Mm-hmm.
The big problem. And that's something that we as Israelis have to start overcoming. First, it's never healthy to hate anything irrationally. You could have irrational hatred, but if you just look at everything through the prism of pro-Netanyahu, anti-Netanyahu, is it good for him, bad for him, and stop thinking about any other concern, all right? If it rains next week, will that help Netanyahu hurt? It's insane to look at the world that way. The same thing with Trump. Biden came into power, and he just starts reversing everything that Trump did, even the good things that Trump did. It makes no sense. But that's where we are as a society. We have to stop that, because that led inexorably to the problems that precipitated the invasion of October 7th. His hands are tied. And by the way, I think as a leader, he has the obligation to explain to the people that, no, this is the popular thing to do, but it's wrong. We can't keep giving in to terrorist blackmail. We can't, hundreds of people were killed even before Sinwar. Hundreds of Israelis were killed by the prisoners exchanged for Gilad Shalit. So that makes no sense. And we have to stop that pattern, which, of course, even now in Israel, people are again encouraging of you're essentially incentivizing hostage taking by our enemy because they know it works. Well, the fact that it works is good for them, but it's bad for us. And as a people, we have the ability to look beyond the needs of today and what feels good today and look more at what will provide long-term stability in our lives in Israel and in this region.
Rabbi Stephen Pruzansky, I think that one of the funniest things is that if I would speak to my liberal friends, I always remind them that the term tikkun olam is actually about not paying too much for hostages. That's one of the purposes of it. I'm just like, the whole tikkun olam, even your term, is used exactly in the opposite direction. It's like, don't do too much, because if you pay too much for hostages, then the hostage takers will start to believe that this is the way to do business.
All they have to do is the next line in the Talmud, and they'll see that it's a great mitzvah to ransom hostages, but not more than their value, not when it will endanger society. But you have to read on a little in order to get one more line, not much.
Rabbi Stephen Pruzansky, I want to thank you, and I don't know what to say on a day like this. Do we say He's Yicham Baruch, and it's like there's this duality. It's He's Yicham Baruch, may their memory be a blessing, and then Kol Echai. We're like, we've got to fight on. The fight is right here, right now. It's right here, right now.
So first we could say, Hashem Yikom Damam, that all the people killed, all the Jews and other nationalities killed on October 7th, so God should avenge their blood. The truth is that over the last year, we have been avenging their blood. Amen. And we've paid a terrible price for it, but the enemy, being decimated, has paid an even harsher but well-deserved price. So that is true. So on the one hand, we can take pride in the fact that we have this generation of fighters that, people are saying that they thought the younger people, they're materialistic, they're soft, they're not really ideological. And now we see they fight like lions.
That's right.
Defense of their country, of their people, of the whole. They fight like lions, and all they've asked for since the beginning of the war, let us win. Let not the politicians interfere and seize victory from the jaws of defeat. Don't do that. Let Tzahal do its job and unleash them. A lot of mistakes were made in the war also, including providing humanitarian aid to Hamas's supporters, essentially, which is all of Gaza. But be that as it may, the fact that we have such a generation of fighters, and we see in the last year the great outpouring of acts of loving kindness of Jews within Israel, of Gentiles throughout the world who've come to the support of Israel. Yeah, not so many of the leaders, but like you see amongst your listeners, amongst the people, the rallying around of the Jewish state, the bifurcation of the world as it should be between good and evil, which was lost for so many decades. All these are positive developments. So yeah, it was a terrible, terrible day in Jewish history. It will never be forgotten. But I hope and I pray that the response that we had to this attack shatters our delusions and complacency and our sense that we can somehow negotiate our way into our survival, into our integration into the region with those who want to destroy us. No. You know, there used to be a trope years ago. Rabin said it all the time. Actually, Shimon Peres said all the time. You make peace with your enemies, not your friends. Your friends are not to make peace with. Yeah, so it's true. But you don't make peace with your enemy who has not given up his dream of destroying you. You only make peace with your enemy who has become reconciled to your existence and wants you to continue to exist. That's the enemy that you turn into your friend. But an enemy that wants to kill you and kidnap you and take over your land, I'm sorry, no peace with such an enemy. Can't happen. And to dream that it will happen just leads us down the prim-yard path of naivete and self-destruction. And we cannot go down that path again.
No. Rabbi Stephen Pruzansky, thank you very much. And may God give strength to our forces and give consolation to all those families of the fallen and give healing to all those who are broken and hurt and bring back our hostages soon. Rabbi, thank you so much and Shana Tova.
You, Shana Tova to you and to all your listeners.
All right. Thank you very much, Rabbi Stephen Pruzansky. And check out his book, also Road to Redemption at Kodesh Press. And gosh, there's so much feelings that we have right now in this situation. Let's take just a quick look at some of the stuff from the past, from this war. Let's remember a little bit. So here's some videos that Malkah and my daughter Leah found for us. Check a look at this. Soldiers getting married during the war. Both officers. There's the Israeli people. Hold my gun while I dance with my husband. So amazing. That's a great video and one that just reminds us of what it really all looked like. Yocheved, my producer, if possible, can we please bring Danny Seaman? Danny, I just put you up. I just gave you a promotion as a rabbi. Danny Seaman is with us. I don't think I hear him well. Danny,
I'm on now.
Okay, very good. Let me tell folks who you are. Danny Seaman is an Israeli political commentator and media analyst who I've gotten a chance to work with in my career, which has been a great pleasure. He's a 31-year veteran of the Israeli government, retired in 2014 as Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Public Diplomacy and Diaspora Affairs. That's a government position that he served also from 2000 to 2010 as Director of the Government Press Office. I knew him then, GPO. He was working for the prime minister, responsible for coordination with foreign media in Israel. He's author of a recent book called Israel and the Foreign Media, and how Israel is presented by international media and the manipulation involved in their presentation of the Middle East conflict to create an ideological narrative, what I call the narrative war. Okay, Danny Seaman. I haven't got a chance to speak with you so much throughout this last year. I think I saw you at one conference or something. But if I may ask you, give me a picture of what this war has been like for you. How do you see it? How do you see this whole thing? I mean, and I'm asking you now as a veteran of a long picture, the long picture, the many wars. Is this different? What has been moving for you? Anything special that is different about this war? Give me your picture of this thing.
Well, I also immigrated to Israel when I was 10 years old. This was 2 years before the Yom Kippur War. So I've had my share of experiences here. I fought in the First Lebanon War. I was a paratrooper then. I served during the what they call the First Intifada. It was the first round of violence of the Arabs in Judea and Samaria, and then also the second round of violence, as they call the Intifada, or the Oslo War. The Second Lebanon War I experienced as a member of the Prime Minister's office. So I've had my experience over the years. And in my position, I had to be very much aware of the history of the State of Israel. This is obviously it's very clear that this is a whole different situation. Also for me, because now it's not me. I have a son who's in the paratroopers.
Wow.
And he's now with the reserves. And he actually surprised us and came home today. But just so you get an idea of what we're dealing with here, my son, who's in Lebanon right now, is home and safe, and we're very happy about that. But my daughter, who's with the Givati, she was on her way to Beersheba today. She was down in the base, and then she was supposed to be at the bus stop, at the bus station in Beersheba. They were on their way to McDonald's, and they turned them around because there was a terrorist attack there, and a young border police woman was murdered today, and 7 Israelis shot. So it's not like we haven't had terrorism before, but everything here right now is coming down to something that we've been preparing for. Or you know what? I listening into your previous conversation, Netanyahu was very much preparing for this, and the state of Israel was, but the people in Israel weren't really aware of what we were dealing with, and for all the reasons that were mentioned before. This is our second war of independence. And yes, last year, tomorrow morning will be a year. We woke up to the shock and to the dismay and to the pain and to the images that we then got. And every Israeli knows somebody who was involved with that day. Either they had a personal loss or they knew somebody. I had a young woman that I grew up in Ashkelon, and I would play soccer there on the weekends. And this 8-year-old girl who came with her brothers, I knew her when she was 8 years old. This was 20 years ago. And Eden Gez is her name, and Zechona Livracha. She was murdered at the Nova Festival. And that day I remember her brothers asking if anybody had seen her in our WhatsApp groups. And then there was this image from Gaza coming out of a young woman, a young soldier being pulled by the hair from a Jeep. You all know her today as Naama Levi. And my daughter, who's also in the army now, she says to me that morning, "This is Naama." I said, no, it's not. She had served in a pre-military school in the Arava with Naama. So she knew, and then very quickly, the friends all started texting to each other, and it was her. So when I see Naama, I see my daughter. And this is where it has come to for all of us here. Now, like I said, anybody living in Israel for any amount of time experiences what we've gone through. We have our normalcy, but this has been beyond anything we've ever experienced before. And I would say even more than that, this is exactly what we were. When we said never again, this is what we meant, that this should not happen again. But now that it's happened, now the real never again happens. And though we had this period of time where there wasn't this rampart anti-Semitism, there wasn't this hatred of Jews, there weren't the pogroms that every Jewish community throughout history for 2,000 years experienced. And we felt that we were sort of immune to that now. And it happened. It happened here in the land of Israel where it shouldn't happen. And that's what we experienced last year. And suddenly we could all of us, I think it's in our genes, could understand and recognize what we were facing and what we were going through. And that was a huge reason for concern last year and for a very long time. Although very quickly, many Israelis rose to the occasion. Although there were failures on many different levels, but the average Israelis understood and went out and fought and defended their brothers and sisters. And very quickly, the army got its act together. And within weeks, for many reasons, it could have been within days, but for reasons that still have to be investigated, it was delayed for weeks. And I'm talking about the possibility of a spy that we're not sure who he was exactly. We know there was a spy. We don't know exactly who he was spying for on October 7th, but the information that he was able to get from being in very sensitive locations was passed on, and Israel was then prevented from taking the action and had to delay it for a few weeks. So, for example, we knew where the hostages were at those beginning moments, and there was a plan to release them from there. And because this was revealed, they knew we were coming from them, and we couldn't take that action. That's at least the things we can deduct from that right now. So this was the situation then. If I go through this whole year, that there were ups and downs, but I think we're on the up right now because we got our act together. And I think a lot of things that were not clear, and I sort of pondered this because you were getting this from a lot of Israelis who were saying, why are we not doing anything to Hezbollah? Why are we not doing anything to save the people in the north? And they're absolutely right. But knowing the Prime Minister's office, everything that we all know, they know in the Prime Minister's office. And believe me, Netanyahu, and I know him for almost 40 years, he's fully aware of all these things. So I wondered to myself, I said, why are we not doing things? At least I thought that we weren't. We all thought that we weren't. None of us knew of what we discovered this week, that the IDF was operating secretly in Lebanon, in South Lebanon for quite a few months now.
Mm-hmm.
But I said to myself, what, we don't have the abilities because...
Are you including in that the beeper?
No, I'm talking even before that. Even before that happened. This has been, from what I understand, Luxembourg have been planning that for a long time because we don't know that it's Israel. So whoever was planning it had planned that for a very long time, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm talking about the average things that we're all involved in. So my concern was that we don't have the abilities, but over the past few months, we saw amazing abilities and the fact that we operated in Syria in ways that had we been involved in the combat in Lebanon, we couldn't have done that for different reasons. One of them was obviously that we'd be concentrating on the battle there, but we wouldn't be free to be able to train not only the Air Force, and I can't elaborate beyond that because there's another thing that we haven't taken credit for. But there was this attack against a chemical, missile and chemical weapons facility in Syria that was taken out. And at least according to the Syrians, soldiers landed on the ground there, and there was physical conflict on that in that position there.
Wow!
And apparently,
when was that?
This was about just before the beeper thing. About three. Things happen here so quickly that
you miss a day, you're like behind. You miss a few hours.
Right. And we're not even a week away from the fireworks display that we had here in Israel. Though they did attack us, luckily it was a fireworks display. So,
but I want to pause you on that just for a second. I want to pause you on that just for 1 second. I'll let you get back on your train though. But Iran sent rockets over. And I showed a video of it, and it's like a massive onslaught of rockets, and it was basically mostly stopped. There hits did come, including in the Nevatim base, but it was mostly stopped. But it's important to note that that very same day, a Hamas attack of 2 terrorists from Hebron in Tel Aviv with M16s managed to kill, 7 or 8 people?
7 people.
Yeah. And so they may have failed on the high tech, but they were successful in the low tech. And it's not in order. And I say this because we cannot start to feel again like we did before October 7th, that we're the big boys, that we got it, that's all ours, that they're a bunch of dummies. No. They did a combined arms attack. They did an air attack, but their proxies of Hamas killed people in Tel Aviv. So we shouldn't think to ourselves like we're in, we're the boss.
I'm not saying that at all. That is not where we are at the moment. We are in the thick of a war right now. But unlike what happened on October 7th, which was very low tech, by the way,
right,
and an embarrassment to the whole plans of high tech that we had, and those who relied on the supposed high tech instead of, every average Israeli in the South could have told you that, you can't. We're feeling threatened. Everybody felt that. But it's these high tech people and all these generals who believe they have the answers to everything. And that was hubris. And we paid a price for the hubris last year.
Right. That's right.
So I'm saying this whole year, and here's where I want to go back to it now. Yes, initially it's huge and it's historic in the sense that it's something that Jews went through for many years, and now we're at the real part of never again, because now, unlike Jews before, we can defend ourselves, and that is exactly what we're doing. But in a way, I don't want to say a blessing in disguise. I don't want to say we were lucky, because there was too much pain and too many people lost their lives and suffered and paid the ultimate price. But what we're seeing today is, and what we're exposing in Lebanon, in South Lebanon, is that there was a major attack being planned. Now, we knew this for a while. Netanyahu has been saying this for over 10 years. It's not that he had a grudge on his shoulder and wanted to attack Iran because we don't like the way they look. No, he knew beyond the nuclear facilities that they're building there and the direct threat that they said. They have this clock in Tehran that they're showing that has 2040 on is when they'll destroy Israel. And it's a countdown clock. And part of that was not only the nuclear weapons, but these proxies that they were building all around us.
But so you're saying that the clock says 2040, they'll get rid of us, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But that just shows something about the Iranians, which I respect, or I think we have to take seriously. They understand that the fight against Israel will take a long and serious amount of time. They're thinking like Persians. They're playing the chess game. They're laying out the chess pieces, and they're laying out a strategy. That just goes to show we just want to live in peace, but they have a serious goal of destroying Israel, and they have a serious timeline for it.
And so we've been preparing first with South Lebanon, but also with Iran, the appropriate response, because, and I wrote an article about this in Midah magazine a few years ago, that Bibi is basically playing 3D chess. They're playing chess. Everybody, there are some chess players, but he's playing 3D chess. And I say that to his credit, with the understanding of historical events and how things develop. He knew, and this was what he was trying to convey, and it was said previously by the rabbi who you just had on, that he had his hands tied behind his back. And this is another point I want to make. Besides,
wait, hold on one second. This Bibi, is this the same Bibi you worked for? Is this the same guy, or has there been a change? I'm asking you, and I shouldn't call him Bibi like this on the broadcast. The Prime Minister Netanyahu, I got to give the respect of the office, but seriously, is he a different man? Is there something different? Has something happened here in Israel, which I don't know how to translate into English, which is called Balabait Ishtageh, like is it Crazy Eddie? Has he flipped a switch to really like push back on the bad guys?
I think that you have to understand the family he comes from. His father was the assistant to Jabotinsky. He's very much part of, I don't want to say the system because that has negative connotations, but he has that mamlachtiyut, that honor for government, for its systems, despite him being constantly presented by Israeli left-wing media as being this guy, and all he cares about is his political career. Yes, because every politician, any normal politician, thinks that way. But he understands the historical significance, and he tried working with the system, and the system failed him many times. First and foremost was the attempt back in 2010, 2011, that Israel was planning the assault on Iran against its nuclear facilities, and he was betrayed by members of the Israeli government and especially by the head of the Mossad, who was connected with the Americans at the time. So he knew that couldn't happen, but he always tried working within the system. Everything fell apart. The system fell apart on October 7th. And I don't even want to go because this still has to be investigated, but a lot of us have many questions as to what really went down. Why was he not informed by the top echelon of the military? Why was he not informed that evening of the red sirens going off everywhere? And he was not informed about it. And for months, the young women who were betrayed by this country, and this is a point I want to make in a moment, the soldiers on the border were alerting their commanders to the fact that things here are going very wrong. All the signs are what we have been trained for, and they ignored them. And this is a big thing I want to say, that this is just an example of how our generation, I'm afraid to say, and it doesn't matter if we were right-wing or left-wing, our generation failed this generation. It has to be absolutely clear. By giving in to these whims of believing of this wonderful hunky-dory world, if we just sing Kumbaya, my Lord, and sign in Oslo. And yes, you and I obviously were opposed to it, but we did not do enough. The media here failed them. The government failed them. The politicians failed them. Our generation failed this generation. And they're now paying the price with their lives for what we did or what we didn't do, because we got caught up in these beliefs instead of listening to what our enemy are saying and what their intentions are. Peace is not a negative thing. But when we saw that it was failing, when we understood, and they were saying very clearly, Arafat, a few months later, said, oh, he's signing it now because right now they don't have the ability to defeat us. And it's part of Islamic lore of how Muhammad destroyed the Jews when he first signed an agreement with them. And a few years later, when he felt he was physically stronger, superior to them, he took them out.
Hudaybiyah.
So, exactly. So they have the same thing today. And we did not stress enough and did not fight enough against this attitude in Israel. And by the way, it's over. There will never be a Palestinian state. Don't listen to Haaretz newspaper. Don't listen to all the left-wing reporters that are telling you abroad, we have to find what's going to happen the day after. We already seen what the day after is going to be. We know what the day after will be.
You talk about this, but
stand up to them today.
But Danny, you know that I agree. I love your points.
If I just may interrupt you for one moment,
Sure,
I want to
sure.
end that point with one thing. We
Sure.
failed this generation, but they are not failing us.
Mm-hmm.
They have stood up. We must have done something right because we brought up these kids in the right way. Their dedication to the country, their belief in Judaism, despite a strong effort inside of Israel to sort of disassociate us from our Jewish roots in this country. These kids, it's just outstanding. Anybody who sees them in the battlefield, in the way that they're all wearing tzitziot, in the prayers that are going on there. And I come from a secular family. And you see these kids, and they're amazing. This generation, not only in the abilities in the battlefield, but also in their conviction and their understanding. So if we've done anything right, it was bringing these kids, this generation, up in the right way.
Amen. You're right. You're right. It is amazing. There is one more amazing vector in the country. I think the number one vector is what you just said, which is the youth and the fighting spirit, the amazing fighting spirit. That's the number one vector for sure. There's one more vector that has completely blown my mind recently. And that's not an easy thing for me. You know what I mean? I don't, I like, people say to me, like, what changed for you on October 7th? And I'm like, really not much. Not my perspective, not much really. But there is one thing that has absolutely shocked me. And that is Channel 14. I have been completely amazed.
I saw you watching it. It's on my television as well.
It's in my background. And I am just, Danny, I'm telling you as a media professional, one media professional to another one, I can't believe that this day has come, that there's such a beautiful mixture of religious sentiment with secular nationalism, all the good forces of Israel, all those good things that the secular world has and that the religious world, and that melding with the spirit. I'll tell you, they like, sometimes I'm just like, it's like Shechianu v'Kimanu. I can't believe that there's like these messages out there. I mean, And last week I played the Yinon Magal, like when it started his program after the killing of Hassan Nasrallah with Jewish songs, Achreini 9, he's waving the flag, and it was really quite an amazing thing. And I'm just thankful that we have a shofar that has that voice of
I'm trying to get them. I'm trying to convince them to create content in English, because first off, they do represent the majority of Israelis.
Right.
And I haven't been able to, unfortunately, I haven't gotten to the owner yet. I got to his representative, and he's saying they have a lot on their plate and they have to understand this is very much part of the battle as well.
Right.
And what people are getting, and you see this sort of mix between the American administration, unfortunately, who are feeding journalists here, and our journalists from the left wing are feeding the administration. And you see this back and forth where they're sort of saying, oh, this is what the Israeli media is saying. But this is not what the Israeli public is thinking.
Right.
The Israeli public, Channel 14 represents the Israeli public.
I think so. I agree with you 100%, and I'll be happy to work with you to see if we can create English content for Channel 14. But I actually think that a step before that would be great to see Channel 14 type content on Israeli radio. I'd love to see talk radio that's nationalistic, pro-Judaism.
The only channel is the one I work with. Right now I have a weekly show on Galei Israel.
Galei Israel,
the only conservative, right-wing religious channel. Just like 14, don't operate on holidays and on the Sabbath. I have a lot of secular people like myself who complain. I said, you know what? No, I actually liked it. I like the fact that they don't violate the sanctity of the Sabbath. And I think even if we're not religious, I think we have to respect that. Now, I live in Jerusalem.
That's our Jewish identity.
Exactly. That's what we're
right.
all about.
That's right.
And nobody's imposing it upon us. Nobody's telling us that you can't do these things. And
Right.
I know for myself, if anybody tried to impose, and I eat kosher, and I observe the holidays, and I observe Passover, and certainly Yom Kippur, but if anybody was trying to impose any of this on me,
Right.
I wouldn't eat it, but I'd be cooking pork on my balcony just to spite. But it doesn't get there. And all these people that are demonstrating in Israel, leaving the impression that, nobody's ever, and I live in Jerusalem, nobody has ever tried to impose anything on us. We, on the same thing, try to be respectful of our neighbors who are religious, keep things down on the Sabbath. If we don't have to travel, don't travel. And actually, we come to like it. There's a lot of pleasantness to it. And also the atmosphere of us all, the holiday spirit, people going to the synagogue, hearing the shofars, hearing the prayers from the synagogues. I love it. I say we're so fortunate to have this, that generations of Jews, for them, it was only prophecy. We're living the prophecy here. We're living the prophecy. We should be so grateful to this opportunity. And I am going back to October 7th, saying that we were lucky there. I think that this is one of the things that it also woke amongst us, that we know that we cannot take anything for granted here. As strong as we are, as successful as we are as a country, all of these things none of this means that we can put down our guard and not understand that there will always be those who seek our destruction, not because we're Israel, but because we're the Jewish people, because we carry the word of the Lord and his message to humanity, by the way. It's not the message to the Jewish people. It's for humanity to reach its abilities. We have the burden of carrying that message. People think that we were chosen. We were chosen to carry a burden, and we still carry it. And I say all these generations that didn't have an IDF, that didn't have their children to stand up there and fight for them, they never backed down. They never gave up. They were willing to be burnt at the stake and not give up their Judaism.
That's right.
And for us, who we have it so easy, we have to be respectful of everything they sacrificed, because without those generations, we would have never made it to live in the time of prophecy here in the land of Israel.
Amen. Amen. And I do also agree with you that there's no good linguistic way to say it, but the October 7th was a horrific thing, and yet within it are a tremendous blessing. I think I actually said it once I talked about Ari Fuld, and I said that the enemies of Ari Fuld didn't know that when they killed them, they actually split the atom and they released tremendous energy. Like
it's a beautiful way to describe it.
Right. Like October 7th was an amazing release of energy. And the Channel 14, for example, is bringing out that sense of Jewish identity, Jewish pride, without coercion, with a love of our with a love of our history and our national stories and our God, and gives us strength. It gives us strength to fight.
As it
Danny
says in the
Seaman,
scriptures, "Mimar yitzeh matok," from
That's
the
right.
bitter comes the sweet, and we're going to have a sweet year now.
Look! Can we put up that comment, the one before just now, the Muhammad Abdul Abziz? Can we? That is not something I want to put up here on this show. Can I put up the previous one, please? Hold on. Can I put up October 7th changed me totally, makes me believe in God and in the Israel state, and that's an Arab name there, and there are a lot of people out there, and there's a lot of Arabs, by the way, that are impressed with Israeli strength, that want to see the end of jihadism and want to see the opportunity of a decent life and a decent chance to raise their children in prosperity and peace and with coexistence with economic growth, with healthcare, and with a sense of a God that we walk amongst, and that's not going to come. Any place that's deeply anti-Semitic in the end fails. Look at Egypt. Look what a failure they have been, and why? Only because of their just deep anti-Semitism.
Look at Iran was prosperous, wonderful country, and it's gone down. But when we take out these angels of death and the angels of evil here, these Satanists, the Middle East will prosper.
Amen.
And this can only come through strength, not through appeasement.
Danny Seaman, 31-year veteran of Israeli government, served for a long time as the director of the government press office, has a new book out, which is probably an excellent book. I haven't read it yet, and because I didn't get a copy yet. Hint. Israel
By the way,
and
it was supposed to be called "The Cradle of Fake News," but nobody wanted to publish. Nobody wanted to publish that title.
Why? I like that. That's a great title, "Cradle of Fake News." That's great.
That's what happened with the coverage here.
There you go. Danny Seaman, Israel and the Foreign Media is your book. Thank you so much for joining us, and may the fallen be remembered. May their neshamas have an aliyah. May the fighters have strength, and may the people that need healing be healed, and may their hostages return home soon. And thank you very much for your strength. Toda rabba.
Chatima tova.
G'var chatima tova, shana tova, to our friend Danny Seaman. And I am so honored and pleased to be with you here today. It is so special. I want to thank again my team, Yocheved and Elazar, who are helping me produce the show, and David on the social media, and Moshe for our radio show. And I do want to ask you folks to be part of our general efforts to build and fight and beautify. And there's two ways to do that. Yocheved, if we can pull up the two banners that I'd like to put up today, which is one is the good folks at the Hebron Fund, hebronfund.org. That's right. Hebron Fund is the place that strengthens the Jewish community of Hebron. Our 501c3 does what it's allowed to do to beautify, to bring tourism, and to educate about the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs in Hebron. I have the great honor of serving in this place, and I have the great honor to challenge the dominant paradigm that this Hebron, which is the seat of Jewish peoplehood, is scary or dangerous. It's not. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And we have to overcome the fear. The narrative, the narrative of fear is created by our enemies in order to keep us away from the sources of our identity and our spiritual strength. Let's keep that strong together. So please support the good folks in Hebron through hebronfund.org. Come on our tours and be part of the story of the rebuilding of Hebron. So thank you very much for that. And if you want to support this broadcast and our efforts to send the narrative of a strong Israel, of a strong God of Israel, of a strong Israel economy, military, and spirituality and identity, what I call the four mothers, then please go to fightforisrael.org. That's a 501c3 that I manage. And we do a lot to beautify the land and to keep broadcasts like this going. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of family time that I give up in order to do this. And so does my team, all because we think that it's so important to broadcast to the world. And that's what the English language represents here. which is to broadcast. See, the folks behind me are broadcasting in Hebrew. They're doing a great job, but we're sending out the message to the world. And please partner with us and be part of that support system. We got to keep fighting. We got to keep fighting. Let's do a little bit of reacting to some of the comments. There's so many comments, and my team has started some of the comments. And by the way, you could also do a super comment or an awesome comment or a whatever it is, but it's a little way to pay in to our efforts here. And so you could do that as well. Here's what I'm just picking up. Oh, sorry about that. Let me pick a few. Oh, you want me? You're going to do it? Good. So Yocheved says, Yocheved put up, ask me anything, writes family first, Yishai. It's true. It's true. And it's a question of balance. It's a question of balance because my family understands that this is an important mission. And that mission is to get out the light of Israel to the world and fight the fake news, that the cradle of fake news, as Danny Seaman says. Paul says, I think it's time for all Jews to move home. Let me put it to you this way, Paul. Jews are invited to come home. I've come to the decision that the way to think about it is that the land of Israel is just a higher level of existence. Do you want to choose the option of living closer to God and a higher level of existence? You can. You can make that choice and go on into a higher spiritual plane, not necessarily a higher physical plane, but a higher physical plane. My good friend Alana Brenner says, and also Malkah is awesome. Malkah is absolutely awesome. And she had a video that went totally viral. If Yocheved, if you get a chance to call that up, the video of that Yocheved, can you call up the video that Malkah went totally viral around the Jewish world? I don't have that right now in front of me, but it's the video of her talking about why Jewish women around the world are angry at Iran for trying to spoil something special. So we'll see that. In the meantime, let's put up some more comments. Shobaner says, wonderful couple. Thank you very much. But let's keep talking. Let's not talk so much about ourselves. Look behind me. There are images of fallen soldiers and fighting soldiers. And there's so many people out there. So much bravery. You know what? In the meantime, let's put up a short video of an unlikely person. Oh, here's Carlos, who did a super comment and says, stay strong, Israel. We look at you with hope and stand with Israel. Strength of the IDF. There's something very important in what Carlos is writing about right now, which is that the world, not only does the world pray for Israel and want Israel to be successful, but Israel looks to Israel for inspiration. Benjamin says, Yishai, I found out 4 months ago that I'm Jewish. Well, congratulations and welcome to the club. But in the World War II, everybody was afraid to talk about it. Always felt close to Israel, Am Yisrael Chai. You see that, Benjamin? We find out our true roots, and may Hashem guide you in the continuing path of getting close to Judaism. Speaking of Judaism, here's a non-Jew, a famous non-Jew, and here's what he says about how Israel should fight this war. Let's see him. 1 second. Let's see here. Hold on.
I listened to Biden yesterday. Since I went under the wing, I used to go under the wing of the aircraft. Nobody ever did that before. I did it. All of a sudden, Biden started. But he only takes like a half a question. Usually can't answer. But they asked him, "What do you think about Iran? Would you hit Iran?" And he goes, "As long as they don't hit the nuclear stuff." That's the thing you want to hit, right? I said, I think he's got that.
Okay, so there's former President Trump saying that you should certainly hit the nuclear efforts against Israel. That's the thing you want to hit, and that's what he ends up saying, that's exactly what Israel should do. It should strike against the heart of what the enemy wants to do. I also want to remember some of the other videos of the war in the past. This is something that Malkah picked for me. Let's see what this is about. Okay, this video is a very famous Israeli kind of comedian who did a lot of comedy during the time of during his service. And one of the songs that he played on is a song that is the Harbu Darbu song, which is one of the theme songs of this war. So he does a little bit of comedy to it. Let's see how it goes. And his name is Moshe Korsia, my son reminds me, and he's a cute guy. Check out his little song. So the song says, "Where's Givati?" And he's in the Givati unit. He's like, "Givati, of course we're here. We're right here. I haven't been home in a long time."
ערוכים, פועלים, עובדים בשטח, לא רואים בית. אני רוצה גרסה מחודשת, 2, תהיה גבעתי, אחי, חזקים. מעבר לאויבים בחוץ, יש לנו גם את התחרות בין היחידות. אז אל תטריפו אותי, גבעתי, בום!
Okay, so he's making fun of the fact that the song said, "Where is Givati? Where is that unit?" And he's like, Givati's right here. I've been here the whole time, and we got to change that song and make sure that you say clearly, you know, Givati is fighting. Let's take a look here at some of the soldiers praying. Here's the tank brigades. Look, they're blessing one another. Got the hands on each other's head. They're invoking the name of God and saying, you know, it's time to get into that fight. And this is Israeli soldiers before getting into the fight, before getting into battle. Oh God, God save us. God may give us success. We will do valor in the name of God. Amazing video there. What's this one? This video, if you want to really remember the war, this video is something that my daughter made for me. And she made an intro. Let's take a look at the intro. This is how we remember the beginnings of this war. Take a look. Okay, so that was that really showed us how it all started. It started with that pain. Hold on one second. Let me fix something on my screen in the back here. That's all right. Okay, good. Okay, we fixed that. We got to make it look good. It's important to look good. Let's see the Malkah Fleisher video that everybody. If you have that ready, Yocheved, let's put it up. I'm ready for it now. Let me know if we could see it. Here we go.
This is Malkah in Judea. We've just been informed that Iran is planning to launch an imminent ballistic missile attack against the Jewish people in the land of Israel. They're preparing, and we're preparing for that. You know what else we're preparing for? A 3-day Rosh Hashanah holiday. Do you know how much cooking that is? Do you know how many times I've been in this grocery store over the last week? Do you know how many women are baking their challahs tonight? So help me, Iran, if you knock our electricity out while our challahs are in the oven, so help me, I will gather such a flood of Jewish women, and we were going to come down there and pull your missile silos down with our bare manicured hands, okay? Hell hath no fury like Jewish women whose challahs have just flopped.
Okay, now this video, no joke, went totally viral. It went all around the Jewish world. It really did. It went completely around the Jewish world. So that is amazing. So that's Malkah Fleisher. Malkah, thank you very much for that video. And we can remove that from the deck. You could put on other ones. And if we can have our next guest ready to go, I'll be very happy to have him on, if possible. Oh, he needs the link. I think I sent it to him by email. I think I sent it to him by email. But if not, I will send it to him. I'll send it to you right now to send to him. No problem. That's what happens when you guys are privy to the stuff behind the scenes. Folks, I want to really bless you so much. It's been such a strong and tough war. And you know what? There's a lot of commentators that saying tomorrow Israel is going to strike Iran. And And not only that, it's obvious that the jihad of Judea and Samaria wants to let loose as well, because we've had all these attacks from Hebron, now from Beersheba, from the Bedouins down there. It's clear that we need you to pray for us and to pray for Israeli Jewish strength. And it's clear that we're at a very serious moment here. It's no joke. It's no joke out there. We got to take it seriously. And I'm telling you again, we really can't afford to talk about this war just in terms of like, oh, it should stop, there should be peace. That's not the reality right now. The reality is that we have to really pray to fight hard right now. We have to pray for victory. We have to just recognize that this is not a time where we can, kind of just hope for things to go away. It's not going to happen. It's not happening. We have to fight with all of our guts, with all of our willpower, and to destroy the enemies. And we owe it to all those who are fallen. And there's these stickers around Israel, and there's a whole tent, and the stickers say, in their death they commanded us victory. In their death they b'motam tzivulanu nitzachon. In their death they commanded us a victory. A person who has been calling for Israeli victory for a long time is Moshe Feiglin. He's a nationalist, libertarian-leaning Israeli politician and activist. He's the leader of the libertarian Zionist party called Zehut. As a member of Likud, he headed the Manhigut Yehudi Jewish leadership faction. And prior to that, he also founded the Zu Artzeinu, This Is Our Land protest of the Oslo Accords and the disengagement. And he was a Knesset member between 2013 and 2015. Today, he's one of Israel's leading intellectuals and is understood to be one of the kind of leading lights of nationalist thinking. Moshe Feiglin, welcome to the show. It's been a while since you've been on with me, and it's I think it's very fitting that today is the eve of October 7th. Throughout your career, you've been very critical of the Prime Minister Netanyahu. In many ways, I've shared your criticism. You've basically said he has led us to the situation, and yet it seems now we may be dealing with a different Prime Minister Netanyahu. But I'll let you say it. I'll let you say it the way you think it. And really, my question is to you. It's a general question. It's been a year now. Is Israel different? Have you seen any positive vectors? Are you hopeful at this time? And what are the next steps? So I'm throwing it all out at you right now, right in the beginning. How do you see the whole story of Israel in the last year?
Well, first of all, just let me make it simple. I'm the chairman of the Zehut party. That's it. And you're right. I did all these things, but the bottom line is that Israel needs a change. Israel needs a new direction.
Let me remind people that Zehut means identity. It's the Jewish
That's
identity. Right.
That's right. I'm the chairman of the Zehut party. The Zehut party will run at the coming election, and I'm going to lead it. And the goal is not just to be another, leg on the table that Netanyahu sitting at the head of it. The goal is to lead the national camp, the Jews, towards a total new direction, and to lead the state of Israel towards new direction. Because you're definitely right that during the Beepers attack and during the killing Nasrallah, there was a feeling that something new is happening, and as long as Netanyahu gave the hope that Superman came out of the telephone booth, when something like that happens, we throw everything aside, and we all behind the leader of Israel, no matter who he is, and how many mistakes he did in the past. But then again, we facing the painful, situation, the painful reality. And as I was warning, all the mistakes of Gaza, we cut and paste at our northern border. Again, we find the Israeli soldiers fighting when their hands and legs are tied to the American interest and not to the basic Israeli interest. Fighting according to a set of morals that comes from the International Court of Hague, the continent of Auschwitz, and not the Jewish values. And this way, just as we did not achieve total victory in last year in the South and did not release all our refugees, all our hostages, I don't see that this way will bring back our citizens to our northern villages, to Metula and to Kiryat Shmona.
Just to remind people, we have 60 to 80,000 people evacuated from their homes right now, not living in a large part of northern Israel, a large part of cities like Kiryat Shmona, Tzfat. These are Tzfat is not evacuated, but it could very well be because it's been under attack and so many people have left there. We're talking about cities.
It become ghost towns.
Right. We're talking about major cities.
Even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent us all the abilities to win the war in the north quickly after the beeper attack, a successful beeper attack, and I salute to everybody who's in charge of it, including Netanyahu. Mm-hmm. But once you do something like that, and I assume the opportunity simply one thing led to the other, because I don't see any strategy that came after it. That amazing attack had to lead to a strategic move, meaning the forces of the IDF landing in the back of the enemy, just as they did in 1956 in the Mitle and the Gidi, and the parachuters came down near the Suez Canal, the Israeli parachuters, and the other forces started to run and met them over there. And you had to do exactly the same when all the leadership of the Hezbollah is bleeding. And every Israeli waited for that. And it did not happen because there was no strategy. Again, we went back to get permission from the Americans to do what we need to do. So now our brave and heroes, our young heroes in the army, going back and forth, dealing with the tail of the monster instead of cutting its head, and take over the land. There's no victory without taking our land back, and this is our land. In Gaza and in Lebanon, it is our land that was taken away from us.
Moshe Feiglin, have you seen?
In order to do that, you need to connect yourself to your identity. You cannot take away the land if you're not connected to your. Yeah.
Have you sensed that this year, this year that has passed, have you sensed that there is a change in a sense of identity out there? Have you sensed that?
Definitely, and this is the good news. This is the good news. Something dramatically changed in the Israeli society, not in the Israeli leadership, but in the Israeli society. Everybody saw who ran first and fought, and unfortunately, from which rank of the Israeli society came most of the soldiers who died, including my grandson, as you know. Hashem Yikom Damo.
Wait a minute. You know what? I'm gonna say something I'm very embarrassed to say. I forgot. There's been so much. I forgot about that. I'm sorry, Moshe. If you could a little bit tell us about that. Tell me about that. Tell me about that. I there's just so much, and you try to keep up with the names, and we all have our friends and family. Tell me about the story about your grandson.
Well, a day, 2 days before Shavuos, my family got the horrible message that my grandson, the son of my daughter Nama, got killed in Gaza. And by the way he got killed, the reason he got killed, because he was the first soldier of Sayeret Givati. So he was the first one. He was a real fighter. He wanted to be the first one, and he was the first one. And he was sent into those buildings in Rafiah that instead of destroying those buildings, just as they did at the beginning of the war, up north, in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, after the American pressure and after the international pressure and the fears of Netanyahu and the Israeli leaders from the court of Hague. So in order to fit their categories, they send our heroes into the buildings and instead of bombing those buildings, and that's how my grandson was killed. So we need a leadership. In order to win that war, we need a leadership with total different moral standards, Jewish moral standards. Haba leorgecha, hashkem lehorgo.
He who
when
rises
the enemy wants
you.
to kill you, you kill him first.
Right.
And there's another rule, Jewish rule. Oy la'rasha ve'oy l'shcheno. If you're fighting through civilians, then those civilians that stay there should pay the price, not your kids and grandkids, not your army. You don't sacrifice your own children in order to save those civilians that were used as a human shield and choose to stay there. And if you, Netanyahu, afraid of the national court, you do not deserve to be the Jewish leader.
The international court, you mean?
International court. If you will need to stay in Israel and not to do, I don't know, shopping in Marks and Spencer at the end of the week. So that's what you should do. Stay in Israel. Well, you know what? I'm not allowed in England for more than 20 years for writing an article or something like that. And I'm very proud of it. Also, Menachem Begin for a very long time was a persona non grata England.
How is your
The life of our soldiers is more important than your ability to run around the world.
so Moshe Feiglin, chairman of the Zehut party, but a grandfather to a fallen soldier. Just to finish up, I'm sorry to pick on this, but I do think it's important for people to understand how we Israelis understand these things, how that we feel about these things, and how we go on through these things. You know, how is your daughter dealing with it? How's her family dealing with it? Is this October 7th? You know, I'll give you an example. I spoke to I was at a Chabad event for widows in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, and I spoke to one of the widows, and she said to me, well, the children know to say that their father died fighting as a hero, and that gives them strength. So, like, is there a strength through this thing, or is it, I mean, bitterness is obvious, you know, but is there a strength through October 7th? Do you feel like we're a stronger country? Is your family, is there only dark side, or is there some kind of strength that comes out of it also? And I'm asking honestly. It doesn't have to be the party line. I just want to know what the how does it really touch you?
Look, it's I'm talking about myself right now, okay? It's it's like having a burning coal that will burn forever in your chest. It's a hole in your heart that will never fill. I'm taking the pain. I'm trying to take the pain as something that gives you more strength and clear your path ahead, instead of gives you power, it gives you strength, not destroying you. It doesn't mean that the pain is any less. It's your decision if that pain gives you strength or destroying you. So, crumbling you down, you know. So I choose the first choice. But back to really the national level, we have to create leadership to the people of Israel and to this amazing young generation, a leadership that generation deserves. Because without that kind of leadership that connect the generation to its identity and to its values and to its goal, and to its Jewish meaning, and to the Jewish meaning of all that, and to the Jewish values that we should fight according to, there'll be no winning, no end to that war. They're sending the soldiers now up north, just as they did in the south, to a kind of a continent game.
What?
Game. It's like another Seviv round, as they called it. And as I screamed and yelled at the 8th of October, according in your platform, Yishai. And I said everywhere I could, it's going to be just another Seviv. What we need, another round, like a game, in order to maintain the Oslo concepts going back to the 6th of October, instead of burn Gaza to ashes and burn South Lebanon to ashes, just as the British did in Dresden, and just as the Americans did in any Japanese city they could reach. And we all know what they did at the end. And no British and no German soldier landed in Dover, crossed the channel and landed in Dover or in any more, or in London, and killed women and children and raped and burnt, and did all these Islamo-Nazis horrors. Yet when they had the ability, that's what they did in Dresden. That's what they did in Hamburg, and that's what they did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and any other Japanese city. So don't tie our soldiers' hands and legs with your false so-called moral European rules. I don't buy it. We need to win that war, and we need leadership that will not be afraid of this false set of values coming from the continent of Auschwitz. No. We are sick and tired of leaders that have no idea what they're doing here. Sick and tired. And I'm sick and tired of hearing another soldier up north that got killed because he did not burn the bushes of Lebanon with the Hezbollah fighters inside it. Sick and tired. Enough is enough.
Well, there's definitely what to. We're still not there at the full strength spirit, but I think that I think you will agree with me that there is at least some growth in that direction. There is more of a sense of the Israeli dragon coming out. There is more sense of that. There have been actions taken. It does seem like, I'll just give you one example today. I played this video earlier of Netanyahu ripping Macron and just telling him, we're going to win this war with your help or without your help. And it's a kind of discourse that I haven't heard in a long time. Not only that, the attack on Nasrallah, getting rid of this evil spirit that hasn't been gotten rid of in a long time. So I agree with everything you're saying, that we should certainly not sacrifice soldiers like your grandson for foolishness. It's not that he died for foolishness, but I'm saying we should never allow soldiers to die needlessly. We have to make sure that the bad guys die needlessly, and not us. We gotta finish them off, not our soldiers. Or else, of course, we are like the Molech, right? We are sacrificing our children to some kind of foreign idea. That's a Molech. God that tells us to watch out for that instinct. But I do think that there's some growth and positivity, and I think that you're running in the next election will benefit also from that spirit that is so growing inside of our nation today. Do you see that spirit as well?
I don't know what led to that change that you're talking about, and you're right. There was some changes, and I don't know what led to it. I have no problem giving all the credit to Netanyahu, and when he's doing it, as I said, when it looks like after 30 years of total mistaken and terrible strategy, from hugging Arafat in 1996 to his horrible speech, Bar Ilan speech that gave our land to the basically said that there is a Palestinian people and the heart of the land belongs to them, and the release of Sinwar and everything. I'm willing to put all that aside and back Netanyahu if he's doing what needs to be done. And for 2-3 days, it looked like something is really changing. You're right. But now the way the IDF is fighting in Lebanon, for over 20 years, more than 20 years, on every stage I had, writing, verbally, writing, talking, I explained that Netanyahu's strategy, the way he deals with the Iranian threat, will lead to an atomic bomb. We're almost there. I don't trust him. I don't trust him a bit.
Let's see some videos, by the way, Moshe.
That now he will do something that will change it.
Let's see a little bit of the videos.
I simply don't trust him. I mean, this strategy of basically giving the responsibility to the threat of atomic bombing in Iran to the Americans, to lean on the American, expecting again after 80 years that the American pilots will save us from the death factories that are being built somewhere in the world, okay? Just as they did not bomb Auschwitz, they did not bomb Iran, and they will never will. And Netanyahu should have done what he needed to do 20 years ago. It was much easier. He did not. Why he did not? Because the leader of the IDF and the Mossad did not want to. So instead of firing them, he went ahead with that. So it's his responsibility. So the bottom line is, I don't care about Netanyahu. It's very nice. We all want to see all the good parts in the situation, be positive, and I have nothing personally against the guy. But the bottom line is, I don't trust him a bit. And I see what's happening now as another golden opportunity that's being thrown to the water. And back exactly to the same, we are back exactly to the same strategy that we got caught in Gaza for a year, and after a year, there is still no victory in Gaza. A victory in Gaza that we achieved in 56 and 67 in less than a week, in 2-3 days, against real armies. We cannot achieve in a year. It is only a matter of a leadership. It's not a matter of ability and all this nonsense that we needed the Americans to have enough. We did not have the Americans in 67 and 56 at all. They were against us then. There was an American embargo in 1956 and 1967. The so-called American aid is not to help us winning, is to make sure that we won't win. But we have a leadership, a political leadership, and a military top military leadership that caught in so many interests in America that we cannot win. So everything is done according to the American clock and the American election and all kind of interests. What about us? Netanyahu's going to the UN and talking about telling the world we are at war. Really? Are we? Does it look to you like does it look to you like we are at war? How come there are demonstrations? Was there any demonstration in Yom Kippur War? In 6 Day War? If you're at war, demonstration should not be allowed. Look what the British did to some demonstrators during the war.
Well, speaking of British, I have a British guest that I have to get to soon, Moshe Feiglin, and I think your points are very strong about how we're fighting this war. And I think, but you agree with me that there is some element of betterness now than there was before. And, you know, there is some moving in the right direction. And, you know, there are people running away from Lebanon. And here's some of the videos that we're seeing, the destruction of some of Hezbollah is basically the only one that's left in South Lebanon. Whoever stays there is culpable because they're probably on the Hezbollah team. And there's serious attacks happening right now. And I think there was a mistake somehow in the Goz team that was lost a few days ago. The 8 soldiers that were killed there. There must have been some error that you're kind of talking about, which is going too soft instead of destroying these houses. And maybe that's, God forbid, how your grandson was lost as well. But with leadership like what you're discussing, and I think with the kind of messages that you're bringing out, there is more of that will in Israel. At least I see it on the street. At least I see it
on the street. There's more than will. That's what I'm talking about. Is exactly what the people want. But you know, videos like that we see all the time.
Right.
You cannot. The Israeli Air Force is bombing them regularly for decades. Okay, that's when there is no strategy behind it that can lead you to a victory. You will never win. And it's just become a game again. I'm saying it again. I don't want to see my great grandson running in again. Either you want to win or not, and winning has only one meaning. There's no other definition for victory besides taking back our land. Gaza is a part of Eretz Israel, and South Lebanon is a part of Eretz Israel. If you're not connected to your identity, you cannot say it. Your lips cannot say it. The prime minister will tell you that it's not real. Remember, it's not realistic to rebuild Gush Katif. Why? Why was it realistic then and it's not realistic now? Because then we had the right spirit with the right leaders. Then why? And if you cannot say it is my land, I'm going to take it back. They have nothing to lose because life means nothing to them. Buildings means nothing to them. Only land means something for them. The only way to win is to take this land for good. And they should lose it forever after they did what they did. And if they don't, they won. And it doesn't matter how much bricks, burns, and fires, you know, you'll see in the air. It means it's meaningless, totally meaningless. So all they're looking for is to buy time till next election in America and in Israel. I'm sorry, Yishai. We should face the truth.
Listen,
if I would have seen anything strategic happening after this great opportunity with the beepers and with the killing of Nasrallah, I would cheer for Netanyahu. Now I see exactly the opposite again. So we're back to square one.
you said something a minute ago, which I just wanted to agree with you, and I told the story earlier in the show today. This happened to me today. I was in the pharmacy, and there's a, it's a fraud. Everybody knows everybody here. The pharmacist is kind of famous. He's been here for 100 years. And this lady says to the pharmacist, she says, Shana Tova. And he says to her, it should be a quiet year. Shana Meshamemet. It should be a boring year. And I turned to the both of them. I said to them, you guys, we're in a war. Let's be real. It's not going to be a Shana Meshamemet. Let's prepare ourselves. Let's look at it in the face. Let's just say something different. Let's say it's a Shana of Nitzachon. It's a year of victory. It's not going to be a boring year. You can forget that. Like, don't live in falsities and in lies. This is where we are. This is where it's going to be. And we got to deal with Judea and Samaria Arabs. We got to deal with South Lebanon. We got to deal with Gaza. We got to deal with Yemen. We got to deal with Iran. We got to deal with American campus. And like, forget it. It's not happening. Like, change, snap out of it. We're not going to live in this like chilled out time anymore. It's not happening.
In order to say something, to finish with a bit of a hope, Yishai, I'll share with you some thoughts that I have. When Israel liberated Jerusalem in 1967, okay, the whole Israeli government was against it. The only ministers that pushed to liberate Jerusalem after the war started were Menachem Begin and Yigal Allon. All the other ministers were against it, including the prime minister, Eshkol. So how come Jerusalem was liberated? They begged King Hussein, the father, to stop bombing the western city. And they told him, we'll give you back Armon HaNatziv that was captured right before. If you just stop. All they wanted is a ceasefire. Like just like today, just stop and we stop. But he insists on continuing. And then the soldiers started to take over Jerusalem before the decision. Actually, the army acted before the government. And God decided that we'll liberate Jerusalem, not the government. Maybe something like this is happening now, because I cannot explain why the Iranians shot 180 missiles at us now. And they will shoot more until they'll force the government to do something. Right. Okay? So, I don't know. Maybe God is running the same, movie again on a much bigger scale. Who knows? But with bare eyes, it doesn't look like the government has a real strategy over here. And I hope I'm wrong. What can I tell you?
Moshe Feiglin is the chairman of the Zehut party, former Knesset member, maybe one again soon. Thank you very much. We also mourn the loss of your grandson. Can you tell us his name again, please?
Yair Hashem Yikom Damo.
Yair, may God raise his soul up, and may his neshama have an aliyah, and may the Jewish army continue to be even more victorious through his self-sacrifice. Thank you, Moshe Feiglin, for being with us.
Thank you.
Not easy stuff, but look what Gissel says. She says, so much truth. He's so clear. Israel really needs a change of leadership, not caring about America's opinion anymore. Torah says that Israel is a nation that dwells alone, protected by Hashem. Thank you very much, Gissel. Okay, and now let us turn to two generals, one after the other. First is a friend of Israel's and somebody who I'm very proud to hear from today. It's Colonel Richard Kemp. Colonel Kemp is a retired British Army officer who served from 1977 to 2006, an infantry battalion commanding officer. He fought in Afghanistan. He co-wrote a book called Attack Red State, an account of the 2007 Afghanistan campaign. Kemp has spoken on a range of issues, political and social, including the issues of British armed forces, the Middle East, and Israel. He is the head of UK Friends of the Association of the Wellbeing of Israeli Soldiers. Colonel Kemp flew into Israel immediately after the war started. I guess I'm catching you back in England. Am I right?
No, you're wrong. I'm in Tel Aviv at the moment.
Well, it's almost October 7th. I guess it's fitting that you'd be back here again. I'm not surprised that you're back here.
I've been here for most of the last year. I arrived on the 9th of October, and I've only been out of the country for about a total of about 7 or 8 weeks since that time. Otherwise, I've been here.
Wow. Why is that?
Well, I needed to know what's going on. I needed to know with my own eyes, not watching stuff on the internet or on television or reading in the papers. I have to see it myself, and I've spent a great deal of time in the last year with the IDF, talking to generals, talking to politicians, other members of other Israelis. I've been up on the border with Lebanon many times. I've been into Gaza several times with the IDF. And the reason I need to do that is because my very, very modest role in all this, and limited role, is to do my best as a former soldier and a non-Jew and a non-Israeli to try and get the objective truth out there as best I can. And I do that I write quite a lot in the press, in the international press, do quite a lot of broadcast media interviews, and I have meetings with politicians in different countries around the world to try and put across the reality of what's happening here, because there are so few people outside of Israel really who understand what's going on here. There's too much distortion by the media. There's too many false narratives being put forward, and it's not just the ordinary people who are deluded by this, and many of them are deluded by it, but it's the political leaders as well. And I've had meetings with many political leaders in the United States, the UK, European countries, Australia, South Africa, and other countries. And the common thing among them all, the common factor among all of them, is ignorance. And I don't say that impolitely. Being a Brit, I'm not allowed to be impolite, not like Israelis. But I say that ignorance in the sense that they just don't really understand what's happening, and they don't get the information they need to make informed decisions. And that goes for people who are in support of Israel and people who are against Israel. And so in order to play my small role in this, I really have to be here to see it with my own eyes.
Maybe you're like do you know what the term Gilgul means? Do you know that term? It's a Hebrew term.
No.
It means, in English, they have a fancy word for it. They call it transmigration of souls. You know, there were these great Brits who were here that helped the founding of the state of Israel. And I just want you to know that only last week did I go visit the Anzac Memorial down in Beersheba. And I had an amazing story happen to me there. You want to hear the story that happened to me at the Anzac Memorial? I went to the Anzac Memorial. I stood at this balcony looking at it because they constructed a beautiful balcony, and I saw a woman walking into the cemetery there. It seemed to be like nobody visits that cemetery, especially now that there's no foreign tourists. And she walked in, and then I see her watering one of the tombs, cleaning it and watering the plants. And I came up to her. I was with a friend, and I tried not to scare her, but anyway, she still got shocked. And I was like, I'm sorry. I just want to know, what are you doing here at the cemetery? Finally, she says to me, don't you know? And she showed me that amongst the 1,000 soldiers that are buried there, there was one Jewish one. And she was watering the tomb of that one soldier. And I was like, wow, that's something. But in any case, it's amazing that you're here and really helping people understand the truth about what's happening here in Israel. But let me ask you, like, what is the truth? What have you seen in this year? How do you understand this year? And did you agree with, maybe you heard what I said previous to Moshe Feiglin, that we're in a time of war. This is not going to be a boring year coming up. What did you think about that statement? Those two things.
Well, first of all, I should correct you about your visit to Beersheba, to that cemetery, if it's the same cemetery as I've been to in Beersheba, which is a Commonwealth War Graves cemetery, mainly with British and Commonwealth or Empire troops buried there. But there's actually quite a number of Jews in that. There's a Jewish section in that cemetery with a fair number, I don't know how many, but a fair number of Jews who were serving with the British Army during the First World War, whose graves are there. So maybe this lady only identified one of them. But that aside, I'll tell you what I have seen since I've been here. I've seen the most extraordinarily impressive military campaign. I think that probably no other army could fight like this. I think, of course, there have been major setbacks. Of course, 7th of October itself was a disastrous setback, to say the very least. Although even particularly as we come to commemorate that day tomorrow, we certainly shouldn't forget, despite the failures, we shouldn't forget the undiluted heroism that existed throughout that day, both with ordinary civilians, Israeli soldiers, police, all range of people who put their lives on the line and sometimes lost their lives doing their best to save their fellow Israelis who were under attack from Hamas and to kill Hamas terrorists. So we shouldn't forget that. But all of that aside, I think the IDF have conducted a very, very effective campaign in Gaza. It's taken a long time, but we shouldn't forget as well, which is something I have to keep telling the political leaders that I meet, we shouldn't forget that this is the most complex battlefield any army has ever fought on. I was in Ukraine even just a few weeks before, several times during the war, but just a few weeks before the 7th of October, and I visited battlefields there, active battlefields, and they're much more intense, far more casualties on both sides, but nothing like as complex, army on army, a much more simple way of fighting. This is different. This is an incredibly complex situation, which of course includes a battlefield that's been prepared over decades by Hamas to kill Israeli soldiers when they arrived there, which was inevitable at some point. Ambushes, mines, booby traps, escape routes, all of this stuff, all prepared, great depth. Plus we have the fact that it's being fought in a very, very dense urban area, which every soldier will tell you is the most difficult place to fight. Then you have the fact that there's a significant civilian population there, which complicates the fight to kill Hamas, of course, complicates it immensely and gives so much leverage to the international condemnation of Israel. Then, of course, perhaps the most significant of all that is you've got hundreds of miles of tunnels underneath Gaza, incredibly well-constructed tunnels, well-planned, well-thought out, well-developed, which no other army ever in history has had to fight in these tunnels. And the IDF, before the campaign began, and even at the beginning of the campaign, decided they wouldn't fight in the tunnels. But eventually they adapted their tactics, knowing they had to fight in the tunnels, and have produced the most extraordinarily revolutionary and successful tactics for that. On top of that, you then have the hostages, which, their terrible fate, again, complicates military operations in a way that, again, no other army has ever had to face.
I want to ask you about that for a second.
You've then got the glare of the media on top of all of that, which is determined to find that Israel's committing war crimes. So against all of this background, you've got an incredibly successful military operation in Gaza.
I have been saying, kind of to surprise of people, that I don't agree with the policy of the hostages being a great concern, a military concern of this war. And this sounds incredibly cold, and I hate that it does, but it's a concern, a military concern for the lives of our soldiers and for the future, so that hostages are never taken again. I have said that we should fight this war as though there are no hostages, and that it should not be a military goal to rescue them, but rather to destroy our enemies. And they are as though they are lost. And if any of them come out and are recovered, that's a miracle. But essentially, the enemy took them from us, and not in order to release them, but in order to break us. And we should not give them that. And we should fight as though they are lost. I know that sounds very cold, but if not, then what happens is that they have a knife in our back, and then we tie our hands behind our back as we fight, and we lose soldiers that have gone there how many soldiers have been lost to rescue hostages that have been taken. Is that worth it? In my opinion, it's incorrect and maybe even up to immoral. But do you feel like you want to chime in on that?
I don't really agree entirely with that. I understand exactly what you're saying. I think it's extremely important that the IDF do everything they can to try and rescue the hostages, as any army would. And it would be the same. I've been involved in hostage rescue situations, nothing like as complex as this in Afghanistan and Iraq with the British armed forces. And of course, we put every effort we could into getting the hostages back. Like I said, this was not a comparable situation. But the most important thing, by far the most important thing, is the destruction of Hamas and the defense of Israel. And of course, you know, a commander on the ground who's faced with a situation where he has to make a decision about, do I rescue the hostage? Do I risk soldiers' lives? What's the balance there? Has to make a very tough decision in coming to that the right conclusion. But you know, that's one of the burdens of a military commander on the ground, and he has to shoulder that burden. And sometimes he'll make the right decision, sometimes the wrong decision. But I think they have to do whatever they can to get the hostages back, but not at the expense of of endangering Israel, because of course, you know, the loss of hostages, the loss of however many hostages there are in Gaza now, we don't know how many are remaining alive, but the loss of those number of people is a terrible thing. But it is not as terrible as the risk that might be presented to many, many more Israelis, including Israeli soldiers, if Hamas is not defeated in this campaign. So I think that's sort of my perspective. I'm kind of halfway to where you are, but not entirely.
Let's just see some videos together of some military stuff. First thing here is some drones that have been shot down. In fact, a drone attack, a little bit like Ukraine, was able to kill 2 Israeli soldiers in the Golan Heights. Here is some drones being shot down by the IDF. Let's see that. All right, we're seeing images of drones coming, I think also in the Golan Heights, and they were just shot down. And these things are deadly. These things are really deadly, and they're out there. Here's another video that we should see, and that is what tunnels. Now these are Hezbollah tunnels, what they look like. And here's they went through. They found a ton of armament in these well-dug tunnels that have been dug on the northern border, up to just 300 meters from the Israeli border. 300 meters is a short run to the Israeli border. And as Israel is fighting the air war of the drones and also of the intercontinental missiles, ballistic missiles, with that, there's also the other problem, Colonel Kemp, and that is the problem of the low tech, and that is the M16 carrying terrorist who's willing to die on the mission, and that is what we've seen now twice in the last week with horrific results. Meaning to say, the air campaign has not been so successful, although it has been very costly, but it has not been successful. But just today, another a gruesome terror attack, lots of people stabbed and shot, and all in the Beersheba station. And so Beersheba bus station. And so that happened today. So we are facing really a combined arms type of warfare, where on the one hand, we're facing a kind of state-run air attack, and at the same time, we have these terrorists who are coming in from Judea and Samaria, and in yesterday's case, or today's case, from the Bedouin villages in Beersheba. So we're really facing a tough war out there. Here I am in Gush Etzion. 20 minutes south of me is Hebron. Hebron is a well-known Hamas fortified a city of Hamas supporters with tons and tons of arms in their hands, light arms, Nothing too fancy, just M16s, but they do the job. So this war has got a long ways to go. Do you have a sense of this a year into it? Do you have a sense of, and maybe from your perspective, from a long war perspective, you fought long wars. Do you think we're in for a long war? How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a long war for many years in Israel now, not just the last year.
That's a good point.
Israel's been at war since 1948, really, and before that, even if you count the years before the formation of the Jewish state. But what you're getting at is the immediate fight that's taking place now, and it is going to be quite a long fight, I think. Hamas has been largely defeated inside Gaza, but not completely. There's a lot of fighting to be done there, months more fighting to be done to deal with Hamas. And I should say as well, one thing about that is that people, I've heard so many times people saying you can't defeat an idea. Hamas is an idea. You can't defeat an idea.
Where does that stuff come from? Where does that even come from?
Well, it's defeatist talk. It's people who don't want to defeat an idea. But you can, and it doesn't matter if you defeat the idea or not. As long as the idea is not armed with grenades and tunnels and rockets and missiles and M16s, then it doesn't matter whether it's there or not. We defeated the Allied forces defeated an idea in Nazi Germany. We defeated an idea in Japan through military force, and Hamas and Hezbollah can be dealt with in the same way. So I don't think there's no question in my mind.
I mean, every war has got an idea behind it. The other side always has an idea. What does that mean? That there's no victory ever? It's silly. I don't even know where that comes from. I don't understand what they mean by that.
Unfortunately, the Western mentality now, throughout large parts of the West, not everyone, but many of our leaders today, don't believe in victory. They believe in appeasement and negotiation, and that's one of the reasons why there's so much pressure on Israel to have a ceasefire before you've achieved victory and to stop fighting. And as far as Hezbollah is concerned, in Lebanon, they've been decapitated. They've had more damage done to them in the last couple of weeks than anyone, I think, ever thought possible. That phenomenal attack using the pagers and the radios loaded with explosives, quite an extraordinary operation, which just shows the ingenuity and the power of Israel. Now is the time to finish them off. And I don't necessarily mean destroy every single one of them, any more than you can necessarily destroy every single member of Hamas, but defeat their capability of threatening Israel now or for the foreseeable future. And I think now is the time to do that. You said the air campaign in Lebanon had been a failure. It hasn't been a failure. It's been remarkably successful. But
no. I'm sorry. What I was saying was the Iranian air campaign against Israel has been a failure.
Oh, right. Well, I'm wholeheartedly in agreement with you on that. But I think on the subject of Lebanon, the IDF have been hitting Hezbollah targets in Lebanon since they started attacking Israel on the 8th of October, regularly and frequently, and they've been doing them a lot of damage. But you cannot destroy an enemy force that's on the ground, particularly with tunnels and other infrastructure. You can't destroy that exclusively from the air. You've got to send in ground troops. And that is bad. Of course it's bad because it puts our soldiers at great risk, as we've seen with these terrible deaths in the last few days. But unfortunately, that's war. That's what war's like. And the footage you showed of the tunnels underneath Lebanon shows you the intention of Hezbollah. They had in mind to do an attack much larger scale than Hamas attempted or did on the 7th of October. And that has to be eradicated and defeated. And I think the IDF has the capability to do that. And they've gained enormous experience fighting inside Gaza. And the 98th Division, for example, which is in Lebanon.
That's my division.
Your division.
That happens.
So why are you sitting in Gush Etzion? Why aren't you in Gaza, in Lebanon?
The answer to my dismay is that about 4 years ago, I said to them, I'm already 44 and I'm done, and you don't need me. You got all these young guys, and plus, are we gonna fight this kind of war anymore? I really misjudged it, and it actually is not easy. It's painful, and they don't take you back in that easily because you missed your training. But I was actually in one of the most frontal troops in the 98th Division in the recon unit of the paratroopers of the 98th Division. And so, yeah, it's a little. To be honest with you, I hear that number 98. It sends a ping through me. So, like you, I'm making war through this medium and others to be part of this war and to fight for Israel in any way that I can find. So you got me there.
You're doing a great job, if I may say so, Yishai.
Thank you very much, Colonel Kemp. One more question.
Yeah.
One more question, one last one, and then I have to give it over to another general, but a friend of yours as well.
I'm
What's
not
that?
a general. I was a colonel.
A colonel, yeah, okay. Another military man. Just last question: have you seen this American right wing messaging now? The ultra right wing in America that says that Churchill was the bad guy and that Hitler was an kind of unwitting guy, and they're turning these are people that Tucker Carlson interviewed, and it's they want to turn these attitudes mainstream, that the good guys are bad guys and the bad guys are good guys. They want to turn the world topsy-turvy. Have you seen this stuff?
I have, and I'm fairly active on social media, particularly on X and Instagram, and there are two things on X, not so much Instagram, but on X, I can message about two things. One is Israel. If I say anything that's not bad about Israel, I get massive abuse on X, which I'm more than happy with. They can bring as much abuse as they wish. I know I'm annoying the right people. And the second thing that you can message about, which brings massive abuse, is anything good about Winston Churchill. And he's worse than Hitler. He's a racist. He's a imperialist. He's a fascist. He's the worst. And that is the narrative among so many people on social media anyway, even if not everywhere else. And there is a, I mean, more concerning to me, I have to say, than the intersection between the right wing and these pro-terrorist groups is the intersection between the left and the pro-terrorist people on social media and elsewhere in the universities, on the streets. We saw massive demonstrations just yesterday in London, including people who were basically calling for the genocide of the Jews. And this is a very troubling phenomenon. But one thing I would say, I think your viewers need to be aware of this, and that what they hear all the time is from the US, to a large extent from European countries, including the UK. They hear the outrage against Israel, the condemnation of Israel for war crimes. They see the disgusting cases in the International Criminal Court, the obscenities in the International Court of Justice. They see all this stuff. What they don't necessarily realize is, in my opinion, and I don't have scientific evidence for this apart from some polling, but in my opinion, the vast majority of people in the United States and in the United Kingdom are right behind Israel. It's the noisy minority we hear a lot about, but the ordinary decent people in the streets, those people who've ever heard of Israel, and I wouldn't say it's number one on the list of preoccupations, but the ordinary decent people are right with Israel, and they're very much against this anti-Israel clamor which pollutes so much of our media. And while I'm talking about the media, is the final word for the BBC. I think there are plenty of anti-Israel media out there. I think the BBC is the worst because it's one of the most powerful media organizations in the world, and
it's seemingly legitimate.
People think it's legitimate, but it isn't. It's paid for by me and my fellow UK taxpayers, but it's so distorted. And you may remember a few years ago the Simon Wiesenthal Center in the United States. They did a list of the most anti-Semitic entities in the world. Number one was Iran. Number two was the BBC, which is shocking and horrific. And there's been a report recently about the BBC which has called out the immense distortions over their reporting of Israel. But the point I'm trying to make is this is the media elites. It's the organizations like the ICC, the ICJ, the UN. It's think tanks in some cases. It's people on university campuses, but not the ordinary decent people. And I think that the vast majority, certainly in the US, it's about 80% of ordinary people support Israel in its fight. And I know Israel's going to win this fight. There's no question about that. All it takes is political leadership and military force, and it will win. And most people are cheering for Israel.
And the help of Hashem, we need that also.
Of course you do.
That's right. Colonel Kemp, I want to thank you so much for being with us here, not only on the show, but in Israel for the last year. Let me remind you that I extend my house to you. If you need a place to relax, come for Shabbat and stuff like that, we'll have a great time. I promise you. And you won't be the first non-Jew at my house for Shabbat. Believe me, we'll have a great time. So please come and visit us. And thank you so much for being with us in this past year, in this fight. And thank you very much for helping Israel in a place where it's very weak, which is in the media war and the narrative war. And thank you so much for helping us with that fight and with your experience. So God bless you. And may this war make us stronger. And as you always say, let's keep attacking.
Thank you. And I'd just like to remind you as well that you're the one that gave me my Hebrew name of Avner when I visited you a couple of years ago.
Avner is the name of a British general, of a Jewish general, the general of the King Saul, who came over to King David, Avner ben Ner, who's buried in Hebron. God bless you, Richard Kemp. Thank you so much for being with us, Colonel Kemp. Toda Rabbi. All right. Well, it's been an amazing year. And our next guest is somebody who was already on the show earlier today. That's right. We have with us Amir Avivi, Colonel, Brigadier General in the reserves. Amir Avivi was the chairman of the IDSF. We call it in Hebrew, we call it the Bitronistim. In English, we call it the Israel Defense and Security Forum, which is a group of 35,000 reserve officers that are nationalistic and pro-fight, pro-strength, pro-Jewish strength, pro-Israeli strength. During his service, he held a lot of senior roles in the IDF, including Deputy Controller of the Security Forces, Director of the Office of the Chief of Staff, Deputy Commander of the Gaza Division, so I think he knows something about Gaza, Commander of the Sagi Division, Commander of the Battalion 605, and Commander of the School of Combat Engineering. Amir Avivi, you were actually on the show earlier. You see behind me is Channel 14, which I think is one of the greatest things that has happened in this whole war. But you were already on it. We saw you in the background over there. It's been a year. It's been a year, General Avivi. Tell me a little bit how you see this conflict from October 7th to October 7th.
Okay, so Yishai, thank you for having me. I want to go a bit back before the 7th of October and tell you that, we 2 years before the war understood that war is coming. And we decided to write a very detailed national security assessment, 300 pages, that was presented to the government, to the defense establishment, to the president, saying war is imminent. And we have only two choices. It's either going to be 6-day war scenario or Yom Kippur war scenario. And we need to choose. What is it going to be? And, unfortunately, we chose a Yom Kippur scenario, but we also put on the cover of this assessment, we wanted to describe in a picture what we feel is going on. And we put a picture of a frog being boiled in a pot. And we said, this is Israel. Israel is being boiled. Israel is facing 4 different existential challenges. And we're dealing at the moment only with one of 4. One challenge we talked about was Iran and all its proxies and, the nuclear umbrella that they want to create, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis in Yemen, Iraq, Syria. All of this is one challenge, huge challenge, but one. The other challenge we talked about is, we called it the Israeli-Arab conflict that has been going on for 100 years, but now it got, new shape. It's a bit different, but we see the attack in Jaffa and today in Beersheba. And the problem with this huge challenge that is going on in Judea and Samaria, in the Negev, in the Galil, in mixed cities, is that this is a campaign, but Israel is not treating it as such. They see trees, not the full picture, not the whole forest.
Right.
Yeah. In this sense, talking about this challenge, we are still on the 6th of October, okay? The third challenge we talked about, and now also everybody sees it very clearly, is the delegitimation and anti-Semitism raging, all over the world. And all these three challenges are external. But we also talked about our challenge, we, the Jewish people, how people disconnected from our story, from our ethos, from Judaism, from Zionism, from our sense of rightness, all the political turmoil, everything that went on in the last year. We talked about it before, 2 years before 7th of October. Now, on the 7th of October, as devastating, terrible, disastrous as this day was, on really, I would say, on a biblical level, something else happened. On the 7th of October, the frog jumped out of the pot. It's not in the pot now. It's like God, gave us a huge, huge slap on the face and said to the Jewish people, wake up. You are going the wrong way, and this way will endanger you existentially. You need to wake up. And I think the people of Israel woke up on the 7th of October. This frog jumped out of the pot. And now the big question is this frog going to stay out of the pot? Or is it going back? And what we have seen in the last 11 months is a battle over what is going to happen with this frog. You see the international community and part of the Israeli society and the Jewish world saying, that's it. We have been fighting for a long time. We did what we did. Let's do a ceasefire. Let's get it over with. Let's stop the war. Let's stop in Gaza. Let's do a ceasefire. And then, if you do a ceasefire in Gaza, maybe we'll also have a ceasefire in the north. Right. And then maybe we'll be able to bring back the people. And then, who knows, maybe we'll have a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia. But this way of thinking is really saying, let's take the frog back to the pot. Let's Hamas stay in power. Let them build themselves again. Let Hezbollah rebuild itself. We cannot have that. This frog is not going back to the pot. And we really have only one choice. It's to win decisively on all fronts. And I can say that throughout this year, again and again, all our generals and commanders on every occasion said, we are going to win. Yes, it started terrible crisis, but from here, we're going towards victory. And I think that in the last few weeks, following the Pagers attack, and then the elimination of Nasrallah, and everything that we're seeing now in Lebanon, the people of Israel and the Jewish people are starting to understand that we can actually win decisively. Many people were not sure. People who have strong belief, they knew, we'll win. But many people were not sure. On a Shabbat dinner, I had my parents at home, and my mother was very pessimistic throughout this whole year. And she said to me, from the Pagers to Nasrallah, it's the first time I became optimistic. I understood that something big is happening and we're going to win. And I can tell you that I feel that this year, this new Shana, it's going to be completely different. It's a year that we're going to win decisively on all fronts.
Well, let me ask you about that, because I understand how Israel's military and political leadership could understand victory in Gaza. They could understand, if they don't understand it the way I do, that we should resettle it, but they'll understand that there should be a military corridor there and control. I can understand that. They'll get that. And I know that they'll understand to push back on Hezbollah in South Lebanon, push them to the Litani, get them out of there, destroy them, destroy their infrastructure, and maybe also have military control like the one I served in 96 and was almost killed, by the way, by Hezbollah. But the Judea and Samaria one, that's a much trickier one, because we're talking about a large population here in Hebron, where I work. We're talking about hundreds of thousands, 100,000 people that are pro-Hamas with weapons in their houses. Right now, they're keeping quiet, from time to time doing a terrorist act. it's a tricky situation we have. We talk about the 7-front war, but some of these fronts are not even clear how to exactly win it. You'd have to have a real switch of the disc in the head in order to really win this thing, to get rid of the terrorists, get rid of the people who are pro-terrorists. For example, we just had videos when the Iranians were shooting these rockets. There was videos of all these East Jerusalem Arabs cheering, and in other places as well. Now, these cheering Arabs were saying, I am with the jihad. I'd like to see the destruction of Israel. In the meantime, I'm working in Israeli hotels or in Israeli construction, and here I am. So how do you think that we're going to, like, I get it. We there's no question about it. The destruction, the elimination of Nasrallah was amazing. The beeper thing was the stuff of storybooks. And there is a new spirit. And there is also Channel 14, which I've talked about on the show, as an incredible source. I love seeing you there as well. It's an incredible source of inspiration. Just the fact that there's this channel. But how are we going to deal with some of these problems that we've let fester for a long time?
So I think that talking mostly about the ground forces, we'll have to continue fighting until we win decisively on all fronts. Judea and Samaria is a front that we need to deal with. But we understand that while we're on the offensive there, we killed more than 700 terrorists. We apprehended more than 5,000. We are doing the job, but with the amount of forces we have many, many forces in Gaza and in the north. We're more focused on Gaza and the north than Judea and Samaria, although we are continuing to do the job. When we'll finish with Gaza and the north, we'll really have to concentrate our forces in Judea and Samaria and dismantle completely this infrastructure. Now, looking at Gaza, I think that Gaza is a big opportunity because for the first time, the government of Israel since Oslo is saying the day after Hamas in Gaza, there will be no Hamas, no Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and also not the Palestinian Authority. It's the first time the government admits that the Palestinian Authority is a catastrophe. And if they say, because of all the reasons why they are terrible, they shouldn't be in Gaza, the next question will be, so why are we willing to have them in Judea and Samaria? It doesn't make sense. They're so terrible. They shouldn't be there as well. So I think a big thing is changing now.
Wow.
And Israel will need a new vision. And one of the things we are doing in Bitchonistim, in IDSF, is suggesting new visions about what might be solutions that could be viable, that will bridge between our national security needs. And our national security needs is massive presence of Jews in Judea and Samaria. Today we're talking about 500,000, we need 3 million, 4 million in Area C. But also there is an understanding among the vast majority of the Israeli society that we don't want to manage everyday life of the Palestinians. We need some kind of solution. So one of the things I think that we will see now in Gaza.
Although I just want to say, although I think we can. I think we can. I think every power knows how to deal with other peoples and their lands. Every power. But being big.
But the issue is that there is a lot of agreement about the fact that you don't want 2 million more Israeli citizens. That's for sure.
Give them residency.
Okay, so there are solutions. This is what I'm saying. So for a long time, there was a kind of thinking that said, look, you have only two choices. Either separate, meaning withdraw from the Jordan Valley and Judea and Samaria, or that's it. That's the end of Zionism. You have to annex everybody. You have to give everybody Israeli citizenship, and that's it. But the reality is that while our national security needs are very, very rigid, you cannot play around with them, okay? You need the Jordan Valley. You need massive presence of Jews. You need to be on the mountains. You cannot exist without that. There is no existence to the state of Israel without us being in Judea and Samaria and the Jordan Valley. Statecraft is almost endlessly flexible. We researched 66 different territories and states formally recognized by the US as independent entities. All of them with diminished sovereignty. Meaning, let's say they don't have airspace, they are surrounded by another country, there might be an autonomy, there might be a city-state, like, the Emirates, so there are many, many different solutions. And I think we are in a period of time where first the people of Israel woke up. They understand these issues much better. I don't know many Israelis that will say, yes, I'm willing to, give up Judah and Samaria. It's simply a kind of thinking that almost doesn't exist anymore. And it's very different from what we saw.
You're saying the frog is not crawling right back into the pot right now.
No, not at all. And I think that, but the responsibility is to really educate the young generation, the Israeli public, decision makers, first about what our national security needs, what is exactly the problem we're facing, and what kind of solutions that are dear to our security needs. Not think about a solution and then try to, arrange security in a way that is not relevant and it's dangerous. No, first, we say there are 4 steps. First step, we're the people of Israel, and this is the land of Israel. That's it. We're not occupiers in our own land, okay? Even before we talk about solutions. You cannot approach this issue by claiming that this land is not ours. It's ours. Then let's agree on what is needed for Israel to be secured. What are the red lines? What is needed for us to exist? And everybody wants to exist, especially after the 7th of October. People understand it's not a joke. We need to treat this seriously. Then define the problem. I mean, as when I published my book 6 months before the war, saying that exactly what's going to happen, I said that the classic discussion between 2 Israelis is discussing the right solution for a problem that never defined and never agreed upon. So, people ask, what's the solution? I say, what's the problem? I mean, what problem do you want to solve? We have to agree on the problem. And then, we actually found 4 different solutions. All of them adhere to what you and I would think a presence of Jews in Judah and Samaria should be. So there are plenty of solutions. And I think for the first time, this crisis is bringing a huge opportunity for a new vision and new solutions, also looking at Judah and Samaria.
How do we say it right? Because it's so, everybody understands it, but it's hard to say it, which is that there's been horrible tragedies, horrible pains, including just today. And at the same time, this war was necessary. It had to happen. And there's been miracles and an awakening. The frog is not going back into the pot. Channel 14 is talking about, nationalism and a Jewish consciousness. My point is that how do we say it right to people? How do you say it right to the Israelis that you deal with? Like that. I mean, or do you agree with me that this war was, in a sense, we had to have it. We had to have it sometime.
Well, first, we say this war was imminent. I mean, we talked about it 2 years before. We knew it was coming,
right?
One way or another. I mean, whether we would have been proactive and do a 6-day war scenario and attack first, and still there would be a war. Maybe not as devastating with the results. But we couldn't avoid this war. We could have done it differently and avoid casualties. And we all agree that the massacre we experience is something, the Jewish people will never forget. But in every crisis, there is also a big opportunity. And we are given an opportunity to change our fate. When I was Deputy Division Commander of the Gaza Strip, I had many delegations coming from the States and other countries. They wanted to know what's going on in Gaza. And we used to stand in the site of Black Arrow, overlooking north of Gaza, and it was always the same. I was a colonel at the time. They would ask me, Colonel, what's going on in Gaza? And no matter what really went on in Gaza, I always gave the same answer. I said, since the day of the judges in Bible time, same thing, Gazans fight us, we bring the people, we fight them back. again and again and again, just like today. You look at the book of Judges and today, the same dynamics, really. And at the end of the book of Judges, it says, and the land was quiet for 40 years. And, Rabbi asked, why say that? Why does the Bible need to state that the land was quiet for 40 years? And the answer is that 40 years of quiet in the land of Israel is an event of biblical dimension. It never happened in 4,000 years. And we are living a biblical moment. And I think we have the opportunity to replicate this achievement, And I truly believe that the bigger the win will be, the more decisively we'll win, the greater the golden age of Israel and the Jewish people will be the day after.
Right.
The day after, there will be peace agreements. The economy will bloom. There will be massive aliyah to Israel. There will be baby boom. A great future awaits us. Okay. We need to do just one thing. Stay united and win. That's it.
That's right. But I want to add to that. There'll be investment into Israel, but also Saudi Arabia will be safer. There'll be more tourism in the whole region. Countries that are suckled on anti-Semitism, like Egypt, will start to realize that it's pointless, but then they'll start to have new opportunities because they'll get out of this kind of thing. Maybe right people around the world will win in political elections because strength is what people are asking. What's your name? It's Amir Avivi. He's the Brigadier General. If you want to see his stuff, a lot of his writings and important work, it's IDSF, the Israel Defense and Security Forum. What's the website for that?
IDSF.org.il.
Okay, IDSF.org.il. And people should check it out. It's actually a very good site. Actually, that's a good reminder that my wife sent me something about your site, which is you have a whole section there. I don't know if it's in English, but you have a whole section about the heroism
right
of the war so far.
Our site is both in English and in Hebrew. We have a huge amount of content in English. We create a lot of content, really educating about everything that has to do with national security. And we say national security is first and foremost about national values. Without right. Judaism and Zionism, there is no national security.
That's right. And my point is that the Israeli strength is actually a blessing to the world. There'll be many things that get. I'll give you an example. I was doing a podcast, and somebody said to me that I have not been proud to wear my kippah. I've been embarrassed, but since the attack on Nasrallah, I've been wearing my kippah. Just from a sense of Jewish pride. When Israel is strong, it gives Jews. My parents heard in the Soviet Union, the 6-Day War. They heard about it. And that gave them Jewish strength and the courage to fight the Soviet Union and to leave. They eventually left in 1972. But it was from hearing about Jewish strength. That's what gave them that inspiration.
Yeah, one of the things I say a lot is that we need to go back to being the heroes of our own story, not the villains in our own story. And I think we finally feel we are the heroes in our own story.
But there are still parts of the Israeli media, like Ilana Dayan she just made some trouble by saying, we don't, she's always making us the villains of our own story. It's a great point. She's making other people like her, channels that have you less on, they're still stuck in that stuff.
So, it's interesting, Yishai, that today all channels want me to be there, and I'm on all channels today, because I think they understand that this is what the people of Israel want to hear. They are fed up with appeasement, with weak generals, with post-Zionism, with being, villains in our own story. Most of the people, the vast majority of the people of Israel want something different. And this is why, by the way, they're moving more and more to Channel 14. And other channels, I can tell you, meeting, with the heads of the channels who ask to meet with me. They say, we need your voice. We need you guys also to come to our channel, because we understand that this voice is needed. And because, we never talk politics, unlike other generals. We talk national security and values. So once you don't deal with politics and it's really about national security, everybody wants to hear that,
Right. Well, you're giving us a lot of hope and a sense that this war, that the sacrifice of these young men and women has been worth it, and that the pain that we're suffering. By the way, I want to tell you a quick story. I found a story about the Chazon Ish. He was a very famous rabbi that lived not so long ago, really. And right after the Holocaust, the Jew came up to the Chazon Ish and he said to him, how could you believe in God after the Holocaust? And the Chazon Ish answered him, and he said to him that if you don't know anything about sewing and you see a tailor working, you think he might be just ripping the clothes and cutting the clothes. Maybe he's ruining the garment. But what you don't see is that he's actually making a new garment. And that's what the Shoah is like. You think he's ripping everything apart, but he's actually sewing something new. And so we honor the self-sacrifice of all of the fallen soldiers today on the eve of the 7th of October. And we thank you and the 35,000 officers that you are commanding in this new initiative called the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF.org.il. Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you very much. Thank you thank you for joining our channel as well. 12, 14, and Yishai Fleisher. Toda Rabbi.
Thank you.
All right, folks. That was an amazing conversation that we have with General Amir Avivi, and things are moving in the right direction. And we've been on together for the last 2 hours and 45 minutes. And that's because it's been a special for the 7th of October, for this war, for the Temple Mount Liberation War. Why should they call it only the Al-Aqsa Flood? And we didn't speak enough about the liberation of Jerusalem, the liberation of Gaza, and the liberation of South Lebanon. And I forgot to say that there's millions of Arabs and Muslims and Iranians and Turks and Syrians that are going to feel liberated through this process. When we don't crawl back in to the pot, this frog does not want to be cooked in that pot anymore. And millions of people are going to be liberated. That's why tens of thousands are already celebrating the killing of the elimination of Nasrallah, because he's an arch murderer of their people as well. And Israel is a force of liberation. Say it. Israel is a force of liberation, not occupation. That's us. That's somebody trying to make us into the villain. That ain't the truth. Israel's a force of liberation in this world. We've had on some great folks today. We have Rabbi Pruzansky and Daniel Seaman and Moshe Feiglin and Richard Kemp and Amir Avivi. But all those pale in comparison with the one and only Malkah Fleisher, General Malkah Fleisher. Malkah, welcome to the program. Wait, I don't think we hear you. Oh, wait, and we lost you. There she was there. I saw her. I saw her image. I saw her. I saw her with my own eyes, but we lost her. Don't forget to get on Wi-Fi. And we'll see if we could get her back on. But we lost her there. Let's see if we can get her back on. In any case, folks, I want to bless you so much. Let's see if we can get another video file up right now to show you some of the strength of Israel that has been. Well, you know what? Let's show here. Here's a video for you. Here's another IDF wedding. All right, so that was another Jewish wedding. And here's another wedding of a vet being brought into a wedding. Wait a second, what happened there? Amazing folks are out there coming to weddings, celebrating again and again the rebirth of the Jewish people in the land of Israel and the challenges that we face. And we've got to fight jihadism. Here's a video of us fighting jihadism. Check this out. So Israel is definitely fighting on all these fronts, and I want to really bless all of you out there. Let's see if we can get Malkah Fleisher back on our show somehow. In the meantime, let's see if we can find some more of the strength of Israel. Oh, check this out. Check this out. Here's a great video of Netanyahu in a prayer video. Check this out. This is a special one.
אבינו הקמים עלינו, ניגפים לפניהם. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה, מכל נגע ומחלה, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם. ידבר שונאינו תחתיהם, ויעטרם בכתר ישועה ובעטרת ניצחון. וקוים בהם הכתוב, כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם, להילחם לכם עם אויביכם, להושיע אתכם. ונאמר, אמן.
אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, ויברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל. צבא ההגנה
That video, I don't know if you understood it. I'll give you a little translation. That is a famous song about it's a blessing for the soldiers of Israel. And Netanyahu released this video of him with a choir singing that song about God protecting the soldiers of Israel. That's a beautiful video, right? That's a real special one. That's something that was such a cool wartime thing. There's been so many cool wartime things, and you know what? Like, I think we've forgotten so many of them. Here's one more of Netanyahu explaining what this war, this latest round, is all about.
I have a message. I have a message for President Macron. Today, Israel is defending itself on 7 fronts against the enemies of civilization. We're fighting in Gaza against Hamas, those savages who murdered, raped, beheaded, and burned our people on October 7th. We're fighting in Lebanon against Hezbollah, the most heavily armed terror organization in the world, which was planning an even greater massacre than October 7th on our northern border, and that has rocketed Israeli towns and cities for nearly a year. We're fighting against the Houthis in Yemen and the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria that together have launched hundreds of drones and missile attacks against Israel. We're fighting against terrorists in Judea and Samaria who are trying to murder civilians in the heart of our cities. And we're fighting against Iran, which last week fired over 200 ballistic missiles directly at Israel, and which stands behind the 7-front war against Israel. As Israel fights the forces of barbarism led by Iran, all civilized countries should be standing firmly by Israel's side. Yet President Macron and some other Western leaders are now calling for an arms embargo against Israel. Shame on them. Is Iran imposing an arms embargo on Hezbollah, on the Houthis, on Hamas, and on its other proxies? Of course not. The axis of terror stands together. But countries who supposedly oppose this terror axis call for an arms embargo on Israel. What a disgrace. Well, let me tell you this. Israel will win with or without their support. But their shame will continue long after the war is won. For in defending ourselves against this barbarism, Israel is defending civilizations against those who seek to impose a dark age of fanaticism on all of us. Rest assured, Israel will fight until the battle is won, for our sake and for the sake of the peace and security of the entire world.
Very powerful words from Prime Minister Netanyahu. And now I'm joined by Malkah Fleisher. Malkah, come closer to me. Yeah. All right. Welcome to studio.
Hey, everybody.
Okay. You sound great,
Yes.
Malkah.
We're doing this low-tech style.
Yeah, we're doing
We're
it.
going to share a mic.
I wouldn't say it's, hold this for a second.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's exactly low tech. It's actually, well, you know, I know what you mean though.
Yeah.
You know, we're trying real hard to get
Produce
you in. That's
this show.
right. Hey, track me, little guy. There we
Yes. We got a cool little camera.
Yeah, that's right. Malkah, it's been a year.
Yeah.
It's been a year of also telling our kids, explaining to them what this war is about. It's been a year of I was in the army at some point. There's a fear of terrorism all the time. Soldiers falling, civilians falling, war on all fronts. How have you been dealing with it?
Well, I think, you have to project confidence as much as possible. Confidence not through dogma, but through like providing a sense of security and faith together. Obviously, we believe in Hashem and that He decides everything and sees everything, but also trying to instill in the children that throughout the reality that they see around them, that they are strong and that they are capable of dealing with whatever comes at them as much as possible. But, they're kids. And, I think we've talked about this before. There's like a perpetual need to balance the insane reality that these kids are growing up in with just regular childhood, Jewish holidays, seasons, school, chores, laundry, like the stuff, the regular stuff. And you can't lose control, and you have to continue on, but you have to validate the feelings and make sure that everyone understands that their concerns are legitimate while not succumbing to those concerns. For example, tomorrow is October 7th, and our security apparatus has warned that there's like a heightened risk of terror attacks and rocket attacks. And like, do you even hear the words that we're saying right now? These are crazy words to be using. And our kids, they don't live in a bubble. They know. So like, even we have a child who's 9. Our youngest child is 9. So he's like nervous a little bit to go to school tomorrow. And I can't tell him, oh no, that's nothing. No. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I can't tell him that because frankly, that's not true. But at the same time, I can't tell him, don't worry, we're going to keep you locked in the basement and nothing will ever touch you and you're never going outside again and we'll eat rations for the rest of our lives and just live in here and protect you in this bubble. We can't do that either. We have to teach him to be functional. So, we tell him things like we will wake up in the morning and see what the situation is and make a determination based on what we're seeing, and with God's help everything's going to be okay, and don't worry, and there's plenty of security all around you and Hashem is watching you, and to balance all of this stuff, and you try not to get like heartbroken over it, because there is like a loss of innocence, which is a pity. It's a pity and not what you wanted,
right.
and not what people want for their children. And at the same time, thank God that this is a conversation which is happening as we are trying to achieve victory, as opposed to not trying to be like decimated, right? Like on October 7th, a year ago, it was like people were really worried about what was going to be tomorrow, right? And while, of course, anything can happen at any time, and we can't rest on our laurels, and we can't get arrogant or comfortable. We are in a different position now, a position in which we are pushing back the terrorism in Gaza, and we're pushing back the terrorism in the north, and that is empowering. And so when your kids know that their brothers and sisters are on the battlefield, like charging ahead and pushing back against the enemies that don't just threaten them right now, but that they know have actually threatened them their entire lives and even prior to their entire lives, then that makes them feel like they have the guts to stand there alongside those soldiers and be in it too. You know what I'm saying? Like face the risks together, I guess. You know what I mean? And thank God they're not really on the battlefield. They go to school and they go to parties and they go to their after school, like sports and activities, carpentry class, and, all the things that they do. And it's very nice. And, we have one son bar mitzvah age, and he's been able to go to bar mitzvahs this year. And life does go on, but But you know, this is a war. This is a war, and
That's
no
right.
one wants their children to face a war. And yet they are. And so because they are, then you try to go, okay, like this is real, and you can't protect them from what's real. So you say, we are strong. We are in the war, and we are fighters in the war, too, in the ways that we can be. And the number one way that we can be fighters in this war is just to be tough, to keep davening, and to keep our heads held high. That's what our soldiers would want, and that's what Hashem wants, and that's what we need to project to our friends.
Amen. May Hashem give us continued strength. Malkah, we had Moshe Feiglin on. He talked about losing his grandson.
Right.
I had, I a little bit.
Nightmare.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, we talked with Amir Avivi and the change, and we talked with great people today who are really giving us
really an all-star lineup.
That's why we needed to finish with you, Malkah,
wow.
to really put the, to put the finishing touches on it.
Thank you very much.
And the feminine touch as well. God bless you, Malkah Fleisher. Thank you. And I want to bless everybody out there for being with me all this time, and for continuing to be with the Jewish people and with Israel, and to fight wherever we are and however we are, and continue to see the light at the end of this tunnel. And Hashem is going to give us a lot of strength. Malkah Fleisher, you are relieved and released. Thank you so much for being with me. God bless you, and Toda Rabah.
Who knows, by the way, what the show is going to be like a year from today?
That's right. That's totally right. You're totally
right. It could be like, joining you live from Beirut is Yishai and Malkah. You have no idea what will be.
You'll be skiing. You'll be
year.
like a ski bunny, and I'll be. I actually want to go to Damascus because it's an ancient. Because Damascus is a biblical city, and I'd like to see it.
I'm really hoping. And I think that this is, I don't know if this is something you discussed over the show. I'll be honest, I didn't watch the whole show. But this is such an opportunity for Israel, but it's like really an opportunity for this whole region. This is such a chance right now to get rid of some like very bad people who've had their thumb on the heads of a lot of people who are not us. And on the one hand, it's not our responsibility to like clean up the Middle East and make sure everybody's countries are good. On the other hand, maybe we can take some responsibility and make sure other people's countries are good. Like totally maybe, right. When we talk about going to Beirut or Damascus, maybe that's like, maybe what we're talking about is like a totally alternative Middle East that's friendly to all the people who live here. Maybe it becomes a Middle East that's like full on Abraham Accords, where we can all get under the banner of Abraham, because we don't have these like jihadist extremists trying to ruin everything. Maybe this can become a region where everybody is free.
Amen to that.
Be nice?
That was a messianic vision if I ever heard it. Thank you very much, Malkah Fleisher. I'm going to seal off the show right now, Malkah. So thank you for coming and joining me. And I love that what you just finished up with right now. That's just awesome. That's an awesome thought, and a true thought, with that, folks, it's time to thank all of you for sending so much support, like from Ireland, from G Ryder, and from all kinds of folks. Julia says, amen. And there's a million people out there. Thank you so much for using this amazing technology to just be part of it. Thank you for your comments. Thank you to the lovers. A little bit of thank you to the haters, because you're part of the story as well. And thank you to Hashem for giving us all that strength. It's you, Hashem, and you give us strength throughout the tough times. All of our prayers say that over and over again, that Hashem gives us strength through the tough times, and that he remembers all the fallen, and that he's with us. And it's been a blessing to be with you in this 3-hour special. Thank you very much to my team, to Yocheved, to Elazar, to David, to Moshe, to all the folks that are part of it. And before we leave, I want to just mention 2 ways to continue to help what we do. First, Yocheved, if we can get those banners up right now. First banner is the banner of the Hebron Fund. If we could get that up right now, hebronfund.org. Hebron is the Jewish community of Hebron. It is an embattled community. It is one that people are afraid to go to. And yet a group of brave Jews hold on to it and keep open the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs, where Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Leah are buried. It is the place where King David was first king. It's the place where Caleb came to in the Bible. Please support Hebron by going to hebronfund.org. It makes a tremendous difference. Your help makes a tremendous difference. And come visit the place and be part of it, and print out a picture of the tomb of patriarchs and matriarchs and make it part of your life. So that's one way to support what I believe in and what I do, and I believe that it gives all of Israel and the world strength. The Abrahamic idea gives the world strength, and that's broadcast out of Hebron. And the other website is fightforisrael.org, and that is my projects, including these broadcasts that we do, and our channels, and all the work that we do on social media, especially on YouTube, but on the other channels as well, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook. We've been kicked off of TikTok twice, so I'm not going to plug those guys so much. But fightforisrael.org, what a great website name. And it's just a way to support our various causes, including beautification of the land of Israel, including education of Torah throughout the world, in wherever Jews and lovers of Israel and lovers of Torah are. What I call the international Torah community is out there. So thank you very much for that. And of course, also there's one more, which is buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. I think it's one of the banners as well. If we could look at it, I think there's buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. In any case, that is really easy. Let me get that for you. It's buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. Let me put that up there. Boom. There it is. Buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. And that's a great way to support, a little way, like a sweet way to support our efforts. And the biggest way that you could support what I do in Israel is by having a near relationship to God, and to take time to study his Torah and his Bible and his ways, to be kinder to others. And if you're a Gentile, if you're a Jew, this is obvious. But if you're a Gentile, I have a amazing suggestion for you, a crazy suggestion for you. And that is, in this upcoming holiday, this coming Saturday, Shabbat, there is the fast of Yom Kippur. I'm throwing out a crazy idea to you, which is fast with us. Fast with us. We fast from sunset to stars out, like 25 hours. And it's a way to clean out a little bit. It's a way to ask for forgiveness. It's a way to think about our sins. So it's a way to pray. Think about it. Consider fasting with us, even for an hour, even for 2 hours, even for half a day, even for the whole time. Just fast with the Jewish people. And if you're Jewish, certainly it's an opportunity really to get close to God on this very special day, this holiest day on the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur. Thank you, Hashem, for the friendships that you've helped us create. Thank you, Hashem, for ourselves. We are the biggest gift to ourselves, our neshama, our soul, our bodies. And thank you for Israel and the rebirth of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. Thank you, God, for giving us a chance to know you just a little bit and to do our job in this world as human beings, which is to bring down godliness into this world, to bring down his presence into this world. May we merit to bring down God's presence into this world, and all of the fallen, may they be remembered as part of that great war. May they have the compensation, the prize, the reward for falling for God's land and his people and shining that light to the world. God bless you, folks, wherever you are. Thank you so much for being with me. And I'm sending you blessings from the land of blessings. Thank you. And let's be stronger through this October the 7th. God bless you guys, and shalom.